Right, well, I'm me in the chat room, but I don't see anybody else in hosts,
All right, we're starting now.
which is fine. All right, Jared.
Ouch!
Copy, going live.
Jared, I can't go live without you.
I'm right here.
All right.
Oh, you mean the show itself?
Yeah,
Oh my
like
God.
we're under 60 seconds. Actually, we're 0 seconds now.
Don't mind me.
No
I
worries.
just don't know where I am currently.
You guys ready?
Yeah, as we'll ever
Oh my
be.
God.
Yeah, I can't log into chat
Do you need to log in?
No.
to push things.
No, you don't need to log in to push.
Okay.
You just need to, like, if you push anything, you should be able to. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Yep.
You're recording.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the conversation. I'm Carrie Ann. I'll be your host for this segment. With me, of course, I've got Jared, our resident astronomer. I also have Mike, our rocket specialist. And behind me, of course, I have Dutta, who will be producing the show. Today in news, Mike is actually going to catch us up on some launches of this past week. Jared is going to let us know what we found on Mars. And in our interview segment, Jared's also going to be sitting down with Stuart Money to discuss the history of SpaceX. That should be a fun one. And of course, we take a look at our comments and questions from last week's show. This is TMRO, Orbit 10.33.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
And welcome. Of course, at the top of the show, I want to make sure we give a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. These are of the escape velocity variety. They get their name in all 3 segments of the show. Of course, they get exclusive access to our Patreon only hangouts, early access to After Dark. There's a whole slew of things that they get access to. Actually, one of my favorite things is voting rights on upcoming roundtable discussions, which we should be having at the end of this month. So if you're interested in these or any other things like that, you can head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Okay, so we had a launch abort and a launch this week. Mike, why don't you catch us up on what happened?
Well, first off was the launch abort, and what this was Arianespace was attempting to launch 2 American-made communication satellites on their Ariane 5 rocket, and this was supposed to launch on Tuesday, and the time for that was going to be 21:51 Coordinated Universal Time. And this was launching from the Guyana Space Center, which I just realized I've been mistakenly calling Kourou Space Center for years now. It's officially the Guyana Space Center.
Oh, no.
But with this launch too, the main engine of it did ignite for it and did throttle up to full power before the solid rocket boosters.
Oi.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. À tous de DDO, tir avorté.
So at this point is where they realized that they had a problem. Only 7 seconds were supposed to have elapsed between the ignition of the core stage engine, the Vulcan 2, and the ignition of the 2 side-mounted solid rocket boosters, which obviously did not ignite. Now, a routine computer health checks on the rocket detected a problem, which triggered an automatic abort, although the exact cause wasn't known initially. In a statement, though, the next day, Arianespace said that there was an electrical glitch with one of the solid rocket boosters, but didn't go into further detail. Could have been a problem with the ignition system itself or with the avionics. Either way, they would have had a disastrous launch if it had ignited with that sort of problem.
Yeah,
But
I was just
then
going to
again,
say
they
that could have been
collaborate
so
what
much
problems are.
worse. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness. All
Just
right.
imagine if only one of them ignited and it just left off the pad and went on the other side, or even did lift off initially really well, but
Yeah,
the avionics weren't able to adjust correctly and just goes off course and still would be unsuccessful flight. But in any case, they rolled it back to their vehicle assembly building, and they're probably going to be trying again. They're hoping to try later this month. The last time that this happened was in March of 2011, when they had an abort after the Vulcan engine had already ignited. And with that mission, with that particular mission, they were able to turn that one around in 3 weeks. So hopefully they'll be able to do the same this time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, again, of all of the things that could possibly go wrong, this one is it's disappointing, but it's at least everyone's safe. So that's
exactly. That's the main point. The rocket is safe. Both of the payloads are safe. You know, they were able to defuel the rocket and have everything be just fine. So I almost want to call this not necessarily a launch abort. Maybe this was a successful static fire test. I don't know.
There you go, an extra static fire test.
Got some data on the engine.
I mean, that's the scientific way, though, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you fail as long as you're curating data.
As long as you learn something.
As long as you learn something.
So, yeah.
All right.
right.
Well, we did actually have a launch this last week. Why don't you tell us how that went?
Yes, a successful launch. And this was, of course, SpaceX's successful launch of their Falcon 9 rocket on Thursday. And with this launch, it was a little bit hairy because they were kind of chasing or racing a storm, rather. But they were able to successfully launch at 1400 Coordinated Universal Time on Thursday, September 7th. And from the historic Launch Complex 39A at Cape Canaveral.
Love it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, when I said that this launch was a race against the weather, they literally were kind of pushing it to the last second before the Falcon 9 rocket could take off, or rather, before ground crews would need to secure the vehicle for incoming Hurricane Irma, which is a Category 5 storm, which may or may not hit the Cape as soon as Sunday, and it's getting closer, but we'll see how that goes. In any case, the payload for this mission was the 5th mission of the secretive X-37B mini-robotic space shuttle for the United States Air Force. And the Falcon 9 rocket, which produced 1.7 million pounds of thrust, separated the first stage and second stage on time, and was able to do the boost back burns and the coast back to the landing zone near the launch site. And with this, wow, we were able to get the camera feed all the way down to this and see the first stage land back successfully at landing zone 1. And I'm assuming that it was possible to get that uninterrupted video feed because of the better bandwidth at the Cape instead of on the drone ships out at sea, where the footage is sometimes interrupted for a moment. But I thought that this was just really awesome. And this was actually the 16th successful launch that SpaceX has been able to do since their first successful landing at this pad, Landing Zone 1, back in 2015. And this was really awesome. But for this, the payload, even though it's a very secretive X-37B, there was some information that the Air Force was able to give for it. Now, all the 4 previous missions of the X-37B rode on United Launch Alliance's Atlas V rocket, but ULA claims they didn't even get to bid for this. And the Air Force has proven that this mini space shuttle can stay on orbit for several years. And there was one experiment that they did disclose that they were going to be testing on this, and it was these 3 oscillating heat pipes, which oscillating heat pipes are important because it's kind of like the reverse of a computer fan, but to try to keep things warm enough and at the right temperatures in space. So it's the opposite of a computer fan for space computers, and we'll see how that goes. I doubt that we'll see any sort of data from that, but still kind of cool that they're becoming a little bit more public about the X-37B. So
yeah, it's always funny to me when everyone says, "Oh, it's the super secret such and such," and I'm like, I feel like I could just Google this and find out stuff about it. But okay, yeah.
You can see it from the ground.
Yeah,
so
no,
I've
exactly.
watched the X-37 pass over LA a couple times.
That's
so,
interesting.
Yeah, you can look up footage of all of the 4 previous landings of the X-37B so far. I mean, it's not, what they're doing and what sort of experiments they take with them might be secret, at least for the previous missions, but, it's mission operations and parameters is pretty well known, even if there is some amateur astronomy that's involved in finding which orbit it's in and everything like that.
I gotta say, too, it's adorable looking.
It
as
is
well.
really
I just want to like boop its nose.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
compared to is it
So,
NASA's
so cute.
space transport system, the STS space shuttles, it looks like a tiny little mini-me version
so
of
nice.
thereof. That's kind of funny. All right, so to transition a little bit more into more traditional news, Mr. Jared, speaking of
Traditional
things
news.
flying
So-
by Earth, as it were.
Yes, things just going on past and coming up to us. So you may have heard that on August 31st through September 1st, an asteroid called Florence was actually going through our orbital neighborhood.
What if we haven't heard that?
If you haven't heard it, now you have.
Great. News to
and this allowed us to study this asteroid in really great detail. And we always like to do this because Florence is a near-Earth asteroid object. So because of that, it does sort of pose a hazard, if you will, that it does cross the Earth's orbit in a way that actually means that it could sometime really far away in the future actually impact the Earth.
So our ancestors upon ancestors upon ancestors might come in contact with this? Is that what we're saying?
So because it's very far down the line, who cares? No, I'm just kidding. But
It's actually one of the greatest things I feel about astronomers in general. Just being able to think that far in the future and how recognize that is going to be important down the line, even if it doesn't really affect us here right now.
And we really worry about things like that. And we worry about that for you. So you just continue and do your life. We'll stay up at night because astronomers stay up at night. That's when we work.
Because I'm a morning person, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
So asteroid Florence was actually named after Florence Nightingale, the modern developer of nursing techniques.
That's awesome.
And it passed within about 7 million kilometers of the Earth. Now, the way that we actually got these images is that we used the 70-meter Mars antenna at the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex, actually here in California. We aimed that antenna at Florence, and we sent out radio waves to generate radio radar imagery. And this is what we saw from that imagery. We saw that Florence is about 4.5 kilometers wide, so that's a good sized chunk of rock out in space. Also, it rotates every 2 hours, 24 minutes, which is very fast for a asteroid, but not entirely unexpected because we actually did look at Florence a couple years ago during a study just using visible light, and we were able to find that it had a fast rotational rate. So this basically confirmed that the rotational rate that first study had found was actually correct. We also saw that there's a ridge, actually a very sizable ridge on Florence. It has an impact crater on it, and there's several flat areas on Florence as well. And this was a great asteroid to study. It's a near-Earth object, which means that it is a bit of a threat to us someday. But the biggest surprise from this is that Florence has 2 moons that are going around it, and those moons are very, very small. They're about 100 to 300 meters in size, and the reason that we have that large uncertainty between 100 to 300 meters is because the resolution limit of the 70-meter antenna at Goldstone is about 75 meters per pixel. And these moons, they're like 1 pixel across.
Gotcha.
So it's a little difficult to actually determine their size.
Understood.
Exactly. Now, the inner moon orbits Florence once every 8 hours. The outer moon orbits it once every 27 hours. And Florence is actually what we consider an asteroid triple. And here's some actual footage of basically taking the imagery and stringing it together to make a movie out of it. You could see the inner moon and outer moon
that's
moving
crazy.
right there, along with the rotation of Florence, which is very cool. Now, of the 16,400 known near-Earth objects, only 3 of them, including Florence, are asteroid triples. So this was a pretty cool discovery. So one of 3 in 16,400 known objects.
That's insane.
Yes, it is. It's pretty cool. And I think it's so cool that back in the early 90s, people were like, asteroids don't have moons. Nonsense. And then Galileo flew by Ida, and it had a moon, and we went, oh, look, asteroids actually do have moons. And now asteroids have multiple moons.
That is, but I mean, that is kind of insane to think that there's this thing floating around that has other things floating around it.
Yeah.
That's...
It's like a little solar system in itself.
Yeah.
But it's not a solar system. But it's in the solar system.
Right.
Because it's not a solar system because it's an asteroid triple. Right. Yes. So
Yeah.
It's an asteroid system.
Gonna,
yes,
Still a
it's
system.
an asteroid system.
There you go.
Exactly.
Man, that's going to take a lot for me to wrap my head around. I'm not going to lie about that one. Citizen 37182 says gravity experiment. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we can look at the moons that are going around at the rate and actually figure out very precisely what the mass is of Florence. So that's one of the added benefits of having moons there. So when you know the mass of Florence, we know the relative size. We actually know the density of Florence, so we know what it's made out of. Is it a solid rock? Is it a whole bunch of rocks that have come together? So that'll come down probably in a couple weeks. We'll get a determination on something like that. So, yeah, it really is the gravity experiment.
Math
You
and
thought you were
science.
joking. So.
Destructor1701 in the chat room says, what is the orbital attitude of those quote-unquote moons?
Oh, they're like literally like the inner moon is probably about 5 or 6 kilometers above the surface of Florence.
Okay.
And then the outer moon is probably about somewhere in the order of 40 to 45 kilometers. So, yeah, but actually that's my best guess based on the data. They actually don't exactly know yet because the data is still so fresh. Fresh, hot data.
Yeah.
So,
Marty the Martian is asking, moonlets or dwarf moons?
we'll just call them moons because we don't want to get into this kind of a discussion
Are you
this
sure?
early in the show. So, moons, natural satellite, whatever you feel like calling it, go for it. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. Let's keep moving. So, Mike, some interesting things have happened over at NASA besides the weather.
Or rather, might about to be happening.
A lot of things about to be interesting happen to me at NASA besides the weather. Why don't you go ahead and fill us in on that?
What we're talking about is last week, the White House officially appointed their nominee for the next NASA administrator. And that next NASA administrator the White House wants is Representative Jim Bridenstine, the representative from Oklahoma. Now, this doesn't come as much as a surprise as Trump has mentioned it a couple of times, and Bridenstine himself has expressed his desire and willingness to serve in the position publicly. And during his time in Congress, Bridenstine has made himself an expert on space issues. He's been sponsoring or co-sponsoring a number of bills focused on NASA and improving commercial space especially. He's a big fan of commercial space. And he's also a supporter of returning astronauts to the moon first before sending them off to Mars, but still to send them to Mars. Now, Bridenstine is also a member of the House Armed Services Committee and also the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. And he also serves on the Space and Energy Subcommittee. So he helps to decide the budgets. Now, something else that's really cool about him is he's also served 9 years active duty in the United States Navy as a naval aviator. And he, after he got out of the service, he also is in the United States Navy Reserve and is currently in the Oklahoma Air National Guard as well. Now, despite some of his qualifications and a bunch of endorsements that he's gotten in support from space companies and organizations, there's still a couple problems with his nomination. First off, it's highly unusual to have a serving politician of his level to serve as NASA administrator, since both NASA administrator and a state representative are full-time jobs. But this is not the first time that a politician has been picked for the job. Since he's still a Republican representative, though, and since his term ends next year, if he does become the next NASA administrator, my question is whether or not they're going to hold a special or an early election to replace his Oklahoma representative position, or if he would try to do both at the same time, and that I would have a problem with. Now, Florida's two senators, Marco Rubio and Bill Nelson, Marco Rubio's there on the left and Bill Nelson, a former astronaut, is there on the right, they share those concerns about this nomination. And they've also brought up other concerns as well. They're worried that since Bridenstine is a very strong Trump supporter and is a climate change denier, although he's made some concessions over the years about, that there are certain greenhouse gases that are having an effect on our climate, they're worried, Rubio and Nelson are worried that Bridenstine may hold up NASA programs based on, party partisanship or political arguments, past votes on previous bills, or even past statements like the one that Bridenstine has made denying that climate change or global warming is real. And about that, even despite those things, based on Bridenstine's Space Renaissance Act, I am confident that if he does get the job, he would still try to do the best that he could in the office. And he is a big supporter of commercial space. Whether or not, climate research or whether or not he's a climate change denier, if you would want to shift those programs over to the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, I don't know. But as far as the space industry as a whole, I feel like he's a space fan, and he is on the side of moving NASA's mission forward. So I just hope for the best. But yeah. Oh yeah, and before he can even become NASA administrator, his nomination needs to, of course, be approved by the Senate. So if Rubio and Nelson get other people to have the same sort of concerns, this may or may not happen. But we'll see.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. It's, all we can do really is hope for the best at this point. Of course, get out there and vote for the people who believe in the same things that you believe in, of course. But in a weird way, space has somehow come into vogue. So if we have anything going for us, it's been really, really popular as of late for all parties, it seemingly feels, to move on to outside of this planet, if that makes any sense, onto the moon, onto Mars, or something along those lines. So we can at least be excited about that part. How's that?
And I feel like whatever the politics might be, that they would come to that same consensus.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, that we're still going to be moving forward in a really cool way.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something to look forward to. Mr. Jared.
Yes.
When we get to Mars.
Yes.
Is this something we're going to have to deal with?
Actually, not particularly.
Right.
It's not as dangerous as it sounds, but
right.
it is just a cool result that came from Curiosity. Just to remind you, we do have a car-sized rover on Mars. It's been there for about 5 years, and it's actually found something that's very critical to the development of the blueprints for life, and we found it on Mars.
Nice.
A place that we have suspected may have potentially had life on it. So Curiosity, still roving around on the surface of Mars. It's got this instrument called ChemCam, which up on top of the mast there, it's that circular little opening. Now ChemCam basically fires a laser at a target, be it a regolith or a rock on the surface of Mars, and it analyzes the gases that's coming off of that there. What's so interesting about this result that it got from analyzing some of the gas coming off the rocks is that we found boron on the surface of Mars. Now, you may have heard of something called ribonucleic acid, which is better known as RNA, and that's actually a critical component for life. That's sort of like a nice starter for life, and it eventually leads to things like deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, like what most of us on this planet use.
I was going to say, this is probably the one time that three-letter acronym means something more to me than the exploded version of it.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Sorry.
It's all good. What's so cool is that ribose, the sugar by itself, is very unstable. It's when boron gets added to ribose that we get the stability to form the backbone of RNA molecules. So the boron that was discovered at Gale Crater actually was in veins of calcium sulfate. This means that the water on the surface of Mars had boron in it. This indicates to us that there were temperatures in that water that ranged from about 0 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, roughly, and a pH level that was ranged anywhere from neutral, about 7, to slightly alkaline, somewhere in the 8 and 9 in that area. Now, Curiosity landed in 2012 and was sent to specifically prove that habitable environments on Mars exist. And existed, excuse me on that. And it's done a great job of showing that that's absolutely true. Not only was there water there, but the environments on Mars, life could have actually flourished in those environments. Now, the next rover, which is currently called Mars 2020, very good name there, it's going to build on the work that Curiosity has done, and it's going to include an instrument that is known as SHERLOC, which stands for Scanning Habitable Environments with Raman and Luminescence for Organics and Chemicals. and that's a backronym if I've ever seen one.
That's such a great backronym.
So, Sherlock is basically an upgraded version of ChemCam, and it's going to have the ability not to search for life directly itself, but it's going to have the ability to search for organics and minerals that would be indicators of past life having been on Mars. So, this ChemCam instrument is going to get an upgrade. It's not going to find life directly, but it's going to find sort of like the leftovers of what life may have left behind. So, very exciting result that Curiosity's still doing on the surface of Mars, and also getting a little hype for the upcoming instrument that's going to be on Mars 2020 based on these results. So very cool stuff.
Very, very cool. Awesome. That's really exciting. All right. So that about does it for news at the moment. If you are watching live, we're actually going to do a little bit more news in After Dark because these guys got really excited and they just happened to prepare more stories for us, which is really cool. Right now, though, particularly if you're watching live or on demand, we're going to be taking a break. And when we come back, Jared is going to be conducting an interview with Stuart Money talking about the history of SpaceX. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. Nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Her heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
Hello and welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get into our interview segment of the show, I first want to thank our Patreon supporters. These folks are our escape velocity variety. They give us $10 or more per episode, and they get their name in the show. A whole bunch of really nice things that you should really go over to patreon.com/TMRO to see. But in addition to those nice things and their name in the show, we also have our Orbital members. These folks give us anywhere from $5 to $9.99. They get their name in the show twice. They get access to Patreon-only hangouts, early access to After Dark. They get to see a rundown of our show that we're working on. Get to see that in real time. So also voting rights as well with upcoming roundtable discussions and other things that we may have. And if you would like to help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Now, we have got a very exciting episode. This is something that we usually do not do on Tomorrow because we are usually squarely focused on the future, as our name suggests. But we are going to talk a little history today, history about a company that you may have heard of. They're called SpaceX, small company down in Hawthorne here in the Southern California area. And I've got Stuart Money, who's the founder and CEO of Innerspace.net. Also, something I definitely want to talk about, the Innerspace Brewing Company. And Stuart, you've written a book called Here Be Dragons, The Rise of SpaceX and the Journey to Mars. Stuart, welcome to Tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so why don't we just get right into it? Since we're going to be talking about the history of SpaceX, and this is a very complex and very almost, I want to call cinematic kind of history to this company. Let's go right to the beginning, right to the genesis with it, Stuart. Where do we begin when we start talking about the history of SpaceX?
Well, for me, the beginning actually was the end of the shuttle program. I had gone down to see the last 3 launches of the shuttles. And in talking to the folks who were in those traffic jams, which were unreal there, I was really surprised at the extent to which people that took the trouble to go watch a shuttle launch thought that the American space program was ending. And I knew it was not, that there was a great new chapter starting. So it seemed like a great opportunity to put together a book to track the history of SpaceX, which it was already several years going, obviously, at that point. And that's how it started.
So, with the start, specifically after the shuttle program, what was sort of the concept of SpaceX's role during that time?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, you could almost look at SpaceX as pre-shuttle and post. I mean, I don't think they see it that way, but everything was kind of contingent on the COTS award, the beginning of the Commercial Orbital Transportation Program. And that's what allowed SpaceX, which had been still at that point unsuccessfully launching the Falcon 1, to really get a foothold and a number of launch orders to put the Falcon 9 into production and actually get it on the pad and start on the history that I think everyone's a lot more familiar with today.
So let's talk a little bit about the Falcon 1, because SpaceX has brought a lot of space fans into the discussion, which is fantastic. There's also a lot of space fans who don't know the particulars about those very early days at SpaceX. So what specifically was the Falcon 1 program, and what came out of that?
Well, it was their first attempt to have a launch vehicle, and they targeted the Orbital Sciences Pegasus rocket as the competition, which was the leading small launch vehicle at the time, domestic. And it was actually an attempt to make the history's first, not reusable, though they did try reuse with that. You see a lot of SpaceX's current efforts and what they've accomplished, the genesis of it in the Falcon 1 program. So this was just going to be the first liquid-fueled rocket commercially developed to achieve orbit. And I think the thing a lot of people maybe don't see today is just what a hard road it was for them at that point in time. They suffered 3 failed launches and really got down to the last bit of money, the last effort for a 4th launch. And I think thankfully for all of us, that ended up being successful. And there was only one more launch after that, and then that was it for the Falcon 1. It was a great little rocket that really got them in a position to do great things later on. And I think a lot of folks that are just amazed at what they're doing today realize it was not all that long ago that these guys were still way out in the Pacific trying their darndest to get one little rocket into orbit.
Yeah, and that one little rocket was going to be turned into another rocket known as the Falcon 1E. And can you kind of talk a little bit about what happened to Falcon 1E? Because there were payloads for it, but like Formosat 5, which was just launched, but that got moved to Falcon 9. So what exactly happened with Falcon 1E?
So what SpaceX did was, when they got the COTS award and were able to shift gears, they really focused everything on the Falcon 9. So the 1E, I think, was something that drug out there a little bit. They've come out and said definitively, this is why we dropped it. But I think what you see in the decision to do it is something that is truly a hallmark of SpaceX, is they will announce a great plan, an exciting plan, but they are not hesitant to drop that plan and change it if circumstances dictate. So once they were in a better position with the Falcon 9, and don't forget there was Falcon 5 and the Falcon 5 Stratolaunch variant also that went by the wayside. They didn't get as far as Falcon 1. And it's an interesting aspect of the company that's such a part of their approach, is they'll dig in and then they will change horses midstream if logic and economics dictates they do it.
So how does that flexibility of being able to drop a program compared to, say, like any other commercial company when they drop a program? Is there real flexibility to that with SpaceX? Actually being able to basically say, this isn't going to work, so we're not going to keep doing it?
It's probably a reflection of changing markets as much as anything. Going from a very small satellite launch market, which at the time was quite iffy. It's certainly gotten a lot better. I mean, you see so much development right now in the same market, the same class that the Falcon 1 would have been in. And I'm sure some people wonder, hey, why not get back in that? But the goal has always been on Mars. The goal has been on taking steps to get there, to iterative improvement of whatever is the most important product at that point in time. I'm sure if the market had been as strong 5-6 years ago as it is now, perhaps they would have stayed in it. But they also do a very good job of keeping their eye on what their goal is and not letting distractions, even if it's something that is of their own making, get in the way of staying focused where they need to be focused.
So we have the Falcon 1 program, which was troubled, but I don't necessarily want to say troubled in a negative sense.
Not at all.
It was specifically for trial and error to make sure that things worked correctly. And then Falcon 1E and Falcon 5, which eventually were sort of tossed because nothing was there to dictate a need for it at the moment. Was Falcon 9, which was the next rocket developed, was that always something that had been around since the beginning, the formations of SpaceX? Or was that basically looking at the Falcon 1 program and going, we need to go a little bit bigger than this?
Well, they went from 1 to announcing Falcon 5 and then on to Falcon 9. I think it's fair to say that their goal was always on bigger and bigger and still is on bigger. So they may not have thought of it as Falcon 9 at the very beginning, but they were going to go where the facts led and where the market and the scale of production led. So it sort of led to Falcon 9. And what's fascinating is even in launch you saw this week, it's powered by a Merlin engine, which is quite a bit more powerful than that very first one on the Falcon 1 launch, which was an ablative thrust chamber, of all things. But it still is a direct line of improvements going from where they were to where they are. And I think that's one of the most amazing aspects.
And Astro YYZ from our chat room has a question that I want to take and I want to add on a little bit to it. For anyone who's watching who may not understand why the Falcon rockets are named Falcon and why they specifically have a number at the end of their name. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. Well, the Falcon series was named after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. It's pretty simple on that one. And as far as the number, it's referred to the number of engines. So you had the Falcon 1, 5 was going to be a Falcon with 5 engines, and then actually it was going to be briefly a Falcon 9 with 4 engines removed under one of the later versions of that proposed booster. And then you've got, of course, the Falcon 9. Now, fortunately, with Falcon Heavy, they got rid of that set of nomenclature because Falcon 27 would be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I think a significant difference in payload would definitely have sort of thrown people off for Falcon 27. Plus, I suppose the nomenclature is already established since you have a Delta IV Heavy, which is 3 cores strapped together. So might as well just stick with what everybody's doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why reinvent the core, I suppose. With that there. So let's switch gears a little bit. We'll come back to rockets because I do want to talk about some of the evolution of the Falcon 9 to where it is today. And also we do want to talk about Falcon Heavy because that's on everybody's minds right now. But I want to talk a little bit about Dragon because there are quite a few rocket companies out there. But there are a very small number of rocket companies that I know that have their own spacecraft that they put on top of their rocket. So tell us a little bit about the history of Dragon going all the way, from the conception of Dragon to where it is.
Well, that's a great question because we're all familiar with Dragon as it is now, and pretty soon it'll be Dragon 2 as they're moving into commercial crew. But it really dates back, and I forget the name, but a proposal from a British guy regarding a very very small capsule crewed that would have gone on the Falcon 5. And I believe there ended up being ITAR issues involved with it. I don't know how directly, how serious Elon Musk ever was about that, but it was it's got its origins, and I do cover this in the book. It's got its origins in a kind of a curious little proposal. I think a boilerplate capsule was shipped to the U.S. from it maybe been sent to El Segundo. It was so far back in SpaceX's history. Somebody could correct me on that, but it's gone through. I wouldn't count that as an iteration, but like with everything that they tend to do, the very first Dragon has been a series of improvements. So now we're coming up on Dragon 2, but it incorporates so much of what happened in the early series. And of course, one of the most important things has been the heat shield, the progressive improvement and series of generations on the heat shield. Again, going back to that really driving goal for SpaceX, which is Mars.
So I just want to take a question from the chat room that's related to some recent developments about Dragon, which Space Geek is asking, why did Dragon fail its test recently to not be landing under power anymore? Do you kind of have any clues as to why the original concept of propulsive landings kind of been put, no pun intended, on the back burner at the moment?
That's also a good question. I don't have any specific knowledge, but what I do think they've run into was the realization that it was going to take a lot more effort to qualify that safely to make NASA happy. And then going back to that willingness to change gears if something no longer makes sense and switch directions, they rapidly reached the conclusion that maybe this is not worth the time and the effort to do it. Maybe they'll come back to it, but I also think it has a lot to do with what Elon had said recently regarding a kind of a rethink on how they want to land on Mars. Not going with the side-mounted thrusters and the landing. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and if I remember,
that's about all I got on that.
Yeah, there's honestly not much information out there about that. I guess stay tuned for the IAC presentation at the end of this month. Hopefully, we'll find out some more there. So I want to go back to talk about Falcon 9 because one of the most interesting things about Falcon 9 to me is that unlike some rocket companies out there, SpaceX has actually been making incremental upgrades to Falcon 9 as it flies, and I cannot recall any other company doing that with a rocket, and that could just be a failing of my memory itself. But I legitimately cannot recall hearing about literal upgrades to rockets as things have progressed in at least the past 10 to 15 years.
So I think, it's a great point in that the goal on almost every launch vehicle creator or builder designer is to get a successful design and then freeze it. Do whatever you can to not make changes. And sometimes you see designs kind of downscaled a bit. Somebody will get a little bit nervous that maybe this strut doesn't have enough metal in it, and they'll actually reduce the performance slightly. There was obviously an era early at Cape Canaveral where it was a series of just iterative improvements, but in what you might call the commercial space age, dating back to the introduction of Ariane, it's get design, make sure it's reliable, and then freeze it, and make sure you keep doing what you're doing, wear your lucky socks or whatever you got to do. And that SpaceX has had a different goal in mind, and that, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but it comes back and really drives the way they approach. Now, I think that they do have to freeze the Falcon 9 in the Block 5 configuration for commercial crew, because NASA is not probably all that keen on the idea of continuing to tinker with a vehicle that's got its astronauts aboard it.
Yeah, and just to kind of go back to the point I made where I said I couldn't think of any rockets that have been upgraded incrementally. Our chat room, of course, very smart, very knowledgeable people in there. Space Mike let me know that Russians upgrade their rockets all the time, which that is true. They swap out avionics and engines and things like that. And Loopy in our chat room also reminds me that the RS-25, the space shuttle main engine, was upgraded as well throughout the program. So so it's just very cool to see, I guess, a commercial company deciding to put the effort into the upgrades with it there. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the interplanetary transport system as well, which was at least publicly announced last year, and going to be going through modifications, apparently, that we'll find out at IAC. But can you tell us a little bit about the interplanetary transport system and kind of how it goes in line with SpaceX's ultimate goal?
Well, I may disappoint you a bit on this one. I hadn't followed it probably as closely as most of the people in your chat room, having cut the the book off at the end of the CRS-2 mission for the most part. But it obviously it's going to be, the design's going to be changed, or it looks like downscaled, right? At the next discussion of it, maybe the outer ring of engines removed. I think, and this is just supposition, is that perhaps Elon has been looking at what Jeff Bezos is doing, what he's planning, and really kind of matching sizes a little bit more with the having the Earth Moon space sort of insights. Not say Mars is going to ever slip out of view, but it seems like maybe there's a little bit more motivation for seeking a wider customer base than people ready to move to Mars on the first pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes back to the sort of from the right stuff, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. I guess if you can't make the money, you can't fund it. So you did mention that your book goes to CRS-2, and we're jumping all over the timeline here in terms of history with SpaceX, and I kind of want to go back and talk about both COTS Demo Flight 1 and Dragon C2 Plus. So COTS Demo Flight 1, for those who are watching, basically launched a Dragon into space, into orbit and around, and just how important was that mission to SpaceX?
Oh, it was amazingly important. So this was the first, flight under COTS program for SpaceX. The very first flight of Falcon 9 was not. So, but this was a flight where, you think about it, this is a company that is still coming off this string of not totally successful flights with the Falcon 1. They're into their second launch, and they bring back a spacecraft, which is, it had a wheel of cheese on board it, right? But the comment at the end of it was had there been crew, they would have had a comfortable ride. Probably would have been starved for oxygen by the time they got back, but perhaps they would have been full. Who knows? But in terms of a sweeping technological accomplishment, we're now so used to Dragon, going up and coming back, that it's hard to imagine that this was just really a few short years ago that there was the first company ever was bringing a capsule back from orbit and successfully landing it, and they've been phenomenal at this. A little bit of a learning curve on some seawater intrusion issues, I think, but very, very important flight. And of course, it helped set the stage for the COTS 2-3 mission and the first test run to ISS.
Yeah, and how about that COTS 2 mission? Because that was basically the first, I want to say, is it fair to say it was the first commercially developed spacecraft to go to the space station? Or would we word that a little bit differently than that?
I'm sure probably somebody would want to pick a nit with that, but I think from any rational consideration, were there public dollars involved? Well, of course there were, but it was still done by a commercial company under a design that was that company's, not dictated by NASA. NASA certainly dictated the safety protocols, and obviously the berthing mechanisms and everything was government paid for, developed hardware. But I would certainly give it credit for that. And I'd go as far as to say that the COTS 2-3 mission was one of the most significant events in the space age, number one, and certainly in the commercial space age. To me, it kicked off the new space age in a real way. I mean, this was, you got to remember, at the time that this was going, you had U.S. senators that were still just slamming SpaceX every chance they could. And sometimes their congratulations weren't following too quickly after this thing. But there was a lot on the line, and this was what, right after, not too long after the closeout of Shuttle. And so you got the nation not really paying attention. I remember I was fortunate enough to be able to attend that launch, and the night before, there was nothing happening on in Titusville, right in front of across the river there, looking at stuff. There was just no sense driving out to Kennedy that morning that anything big was going on. And I was like, oh my goodness, the world is about to change, hopefully, if it's successful, and, the rest of the world's just sleeping. But it's changed now.
Yeah, and I remember watching the C2 Plus, the first launch attempt when they aborted half a second before, and I remember a lot of people were like, look at this little private company, they have no idea what they're doing. But everybody, at least in engineering circles, was going, wow, they are fairly mature because they caught a problem just before liftoff, and that's a very good sign. And then 3 days later, actually, launching a Dragon to the space station for the first time with that there.
Yeah, a remarkable sequence of events in a short period of time, and it was amazing just to see it take place.
Yeah, and then after the COTS Demo 2, we had the first official commercial resupply mission, CRS-1, and that also was quite a game changer as well.
Well, it was. So it was the official beginning of the CRS program. There was a little bit of cargo that was loaded onto the CRS. I always call it the 2-3 mission. But then you start actually. I mean, if you think about it in context, this was now. I mean, it was great for SpaceX. It was phenomenal for people that watch them around the world. But it was also phenomenal for NASA because you have this enormous investment in the space station up there. It's now been completed. It's time to start doing the science. And they got to have the science get up, and more importantly, they got to have the science get back. And you've got other people supplying station at that point in time. You've got the ATV, the HTV, orbital ATK is well, they want orbital ATK at that point, but orbital is going to be following soon. But SpaceX is the only one that can bring any meaningful amount of experiments back down to Earth. So it was critical in that regard, and it really kind of kicked off. I mean, NASA talks about the extent to which having the ability to get up and get back increases the pace of science, allows them to actually make use of the time that is available, up there on this magnificent facility. So it was, and of course, that was also a mission that had its own excitement. If my memory is correct, that was the one where you had an engine shut down during launch. The number one engine, you had I believe a chamber breach, and it shut down, and it threw off back in those days, the Falcon 9 had the flared fairings, at the base of the engine, no legs or anything at that point. And so we all saw that fly off, and you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? And, it just kept going. All of the discussion leading up before that, Elon's discussion of hey, it's, here is the logic behind a multiple people had denigrated, this, oh, look at you, you've got these little engines. I mean, you got to take 9 of them just to do what we can do with our, one big. Well, it worked. I mean, thank goodness it did. And that could have been another one of these inflection points where if it hadn't done it was supposed to do, but it did. And that was really kind of kicked off the CRS missions with probably a little bit more excitement than SpaceX wanted to have at that time.
Yes, I do recall that was the first time I ever heard the phrase rapid unintended disassembly. So good phrasing, guys, with that there. So, and then, of course, after CRS-1 came CRS-2, which is where the book that you've written ends at. And, to do it a second time, it's just as important to do it the first time. And if I remember correctly, there was some drama on the CRS-2 as well, if I recall correctly on that.
Wait, and you do recall correctly, and this drama actually was in a lot of ways a lot more exciting, and not necessarily in a good way than what happened with on the CRS-1, because that was an engine shut down, the rocket kept going. This time they had a problem with initializing the Draco thrusters aboard the Dragon, and you have these series of kind of anxious phone calls back and forth. They got the Air Force to help establish a communications link with the Dragon. I think it was, if I remember, it was spinning. They thought early on they knew what to do to fix it, but they still had to get a strong enough signal to the spacecraft to change the software to get these valves to open up. So and this is one that would have played out, over a couple of days, and you could have had a Dragon with an uncontrolled reentry over, who knows where it's going to come down. It's mostly over water, right? But you never know. So this was exciting too, and I think they were very happy for a time at least, get down to just hauling stuff up and bringing stuff back.
Yeah, and I do want to go to our chat room for a question from Jason519, which is, since SpaceX is the most affordable launch service, do you foresee other providers falling aside, or maybe catching up, or maybe the next SpaceX emerging?
In terms of current providers, I think a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, the commercial satellite companies are never going to allow the launch providers to go down to just one, no matter how cheap or how good they are. And you can see why. They're absolutely motivated. Neither is U.S. Department of Defense and National Security Space. It's absolutely vital that you keep what they would term assured access to space. So Ariane space is not going to go anywhere. I think they may not get as many commercial missions ultimately, but so far they seem to be faring just well. And United Launch Alliance has made progress in several fronts as well. So they're going to stay. It's kind of peripheral players. There was Sea Launch that basically what went out of business, and then the assets sold off. They want to come back, but SpaceX really hurts the business case for others. The one to keep an eye on, obviously, I think is actually Blue Origin, and they seem to indicate they don't say much, so it's hard to tell. But early indications were that they were really more interested in tourism than in satellite delivery. But that could, of course, certainly change. Mm-hmm. I have no clue on that, actually. They don't say that much.
Yeah, not a lot of information coming out of that. Yeah. Not a lot coming out of that pipeline, unfortunately. But Andrew Shire in our chat room has a really interesting question that I feel like is pretty good for posing, which is that did the Merlin engine actually play a large part in the success of SpaceX or so far, or is there something else that's really played that?
Oh, there are multiple factors, but absolutely, Andrew, the Merlin engine, it is remarkable in that the evolution it is going through. I mean, it's a completely different engine than it was to begin with, but it actually just gave them leverage. That they needed some leverage, some aspect, and the fact that they developed the Merlin themselves, borrowing a lot from NASA's fast track engine that was developed here at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. That was sort of the genesis of that engine in a lot of ways. But if they had gone out and acquired an engine from someone else, which perhaps could have perhaps bought a Russian engine, what would they have learned? They wouldn't have learned nearly as much as what they did. So starting early and starting and testing all the time, constantly testing in Texas, really kind of, I think, along with the other aspects of that Falcon 1, really helped develop the engineering culture that SpaceX has now, and their overall mindset, which is to continuously improve, to iterate what they've got. So for a Hall of Fame of engines, there are a couple that need to be in there, and the Merlin is certainly one of them. I would put the RL-10 engine and of course the Saturn F1 in there as well. There have been a lot of great engines, but it's been key.
Yeah. And Space Geek also in our chat room has a pretty cool question I want to ask as well, which is a particularly important question, especially considering the overlying goal of get to Mars at SpaceX, which is, will SpaceX ever become a public company? What do you think about that? Do you think they'll ever do that?
I think boy, how many people ask that question? How many people love to have a little stock in SpaceX, and they're gonna, or a lot of stock in SpaceX actually. I'm sure all the employees that have stock options would really love to have that too. I guess ultimately, I would suspect so, but I think it may continue to be further out in the future than anyone really would think it'll be. Simply because this is Elon's made the point on multiple occasions. He's not amassing all the money through his various ventures for the edification of being rich. It's for following through with this dream of making a second branch human civilization on Mars. And logically, you would not want to lose control of the means to do that until that was up and going. I would be surprised if SpaceX went public before they had landed somebody on Mars.
So what's in the future for SpaceX? Do you have anything that you see in the crystal ball that may be something that some of us aren't actually looking at?
Well, I think so. Gwen Shotwell did an interview on the Space Show back earlier this year, and back in June, I think. And one fascinating little question that was asked, it was a big question, but it was interesting to answer to me, was that Elon had constantly kind of downgraded even the idea of involvement with any sort of nuclear propulsion or nuclear power source in space. And for the first time, the door opened up on that a little bit, was the way I read it. But for the next couple of years, SpaceX is going to focus first and foremost on commercial crew, on Falcon Heavy, and Dragon 2. They've got a lunar mission, the private tourist mission should happen, but it's not going to happen until they've done their work for NASA, and they've got that first crew up to the station. They're kind of in an unofficial race with Boeing and CST, right, to get up there and bring back the flag that was left on the last shuttle mission. So this is a hallmark of them, as I was saying earlier, that they, unlike a lot of other companies, they espouse truly grand goals. I mean, how many other companies say we want to sell another planet, and that's our goal? That's their goal, but they also make sure, even though there's a lot of big picture items out there, they're going to stay focused on what the immediate perspective is, and it would be those three things for the time being. Beyond that, if whatever we see at the next iteration of what do they call it now, the BFS and the BFR, right? I guess it'll depend on what kind of capabilities it has as it comes to life eventually. But it would appear to open up the solar system.
And one final thing before we get into our closing questions that we ask everybody, because I'm a bit of a beer fan. I like going and trying out brews and stuff. I've got to ask you about it because it's right behind you, and I've been staring at it this whole time and thinking about it. Inner Space Brewing Company. What is Inner Space Brewing Company?
So it is a craft brewery that I and my family are opening up in Huntsville, Alabama. It's like any good launch campaign. You may be able to read it. It says summer 2017. Summer ends September 21st, and I would have loved to have met that goal. I think we'll be in early October, probably not much later than that. But it really is a combination of two things I love: beer and space. They really would like to create an environment. Huntsville is a phenomenal city for this. I mean, there's so much going on. It's going to land in Huntsville, ultimately once it makes its first trip to ISS. So it's a great history here. It's a great culture, a great beer culture. So this was an opportunity to take a love of craft beer and actually just in our tap room and in some of the other aspects incorporate space, both historical, future space, and sci-fi as well.
Well, I hope I can swing by one day, and hopefully you guys have
please do.
Space Dust IPA on tap, because that's some good stuff.
Yeah.
So
probably won't have that one on tap, but bring a couple thousand people with you when you come.
Sounds good. Sounds like a deal. You get me a beer, I'll get you a couple thousand people.
There you go.
So we've got some standard questions that we ask all of our guests who come on the show. There are no right or wrong answers to these questions. We just basically want to hear directly from you what you think. Take as little or as long amount of time as you'd like to, and we've got 5 of them. So you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, here we go. Moon or Mars first?
Moon.
Moon. Okay. Any particular reason why?
I think that's the best opportunity to get a public-private partnership of the type that SpaceX and Blue Origin and whoever else, ULA here in Huntsville, could use to really leverage the assets and make a real kind of frontal assault on Mars when it's time.
Solid. All right. Would you go?
Absolutely.
And,
well, which one, the Moon or Mars?
I think that's up to you. Which would you go?
Oh, I would love to go to both. I mean, it's let's stick with the moon now. But I left out part of the answer about beer. I mean, if you think about the things as we settle Mars, you're not going to be able to do. I mean, you're not going to go probably sailing. I mean, all the outdoor things you do here on Earth, we take for granted. Can't do it. But as long as you can drink beer, it's life's still not too bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we're not gonna be able to take beer to space, I don't think I'm gonna be able to go. So
I'm out.
Yeah. So when do you think humans will first land on Mars?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm trying to find some sort of promotional thing to do here tied to that doesn't get me in trouble with the ABC licensing authorities. I hadn't quite figured that one out yet, but it'll be in the 2020s, I think. I'm
2020s. All
late
right.
2020s.
Late 2020s. Okay, so just about a decade from now.
Exactly. I'd give it about that much. Obviously, I'm betting on SpaceX doing what they say they want to do, maybe a little later. I'll be surprised if it actually takes longer than, say, 2032, whatever launch window is around that time frame, frankly.
All right. When do you think humans will set foot on the moon again?
Well, I hope in the next 4 years, 4 or 6 years, I guess. But again, that also requires a public-private partnership. It's certainly not going to happen under the existing program, but I think it'll be 8 years on, realistically.
8 years. Okay, so you're thinking 2025, mid-2020s.
Something like that.
Okay, cool.
Everything takes longer than people want.
Yes, unfortunately. And then the final and my favorite question, always to ask people, why space?
Oh, God, for me, why not? I mean, it is, I don't see how it's not space, frankly. I mean, we are curious people, creatures. We have traveled and covered the entire planet. It's in our DNA to go and explore. And you look out there on a night and you see all this and see the moon and squint your eyes and see Mars when the time's right. And I just say, why not? I mean, it is just, the answer is so obvious to me. I can't, if you have trouble answering the question, you're, I don't know. You're weird.
Oh, Stuart, buddy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Founder and CEO of Interspace.net, Interspace Brewery Company, which I will be stopping by someday, and author of a fantastic book called Here Be Dragons, The Rise of SpaceX and the Journey to Mars. Stuart, thanks for coming on tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
All right, and coming up, your comments are in our next segment right after this break. So stay tuned. There's more tomorrow in just a little bit.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize a vision of this, of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
thank you for joining our conversation. Thank you for having that interview, Jared. That was really good.
Thank you to Stuart. It's such great information. From
Yeah,
that, so.
totally. And I didn't mind the bouncing around. I thought that was good. And thank you, Mike, for coming back, of course, and joining us for this segment. And thank you, of course, to our Patreon supporters. These are the Escape Velocity variety. These have given us $10 or more. They, of course, get their name in the show again and a slew of things. We also want to thank our Orbital members. These are people who have given us $5 or more. As Jared explained, they get the swag store stuff and a whole bunch of other things. And then, of course, our Suborbital members. These are the $2.50 and more. They get their name in the show. There you go. Early access to After Dark. Of course, I like also the copy of the show rundown, the view-only copy of the show rundown, so you can kind of see all the craziness as it happens, and of course, free shipping and our TMRO swag store as well. If you are also interested in any of these things and more that we did not mention, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Oh my goodness. All right, so this segment we're talking about, as you saw there, a little flash of Dave. We're talking about comments and questions, concerns, complaints that you had about our previous show or anything going forward. We, of course, were speaking with Dave Maston of Maston Space Systems last week. If you missed that one, it's another great conversation with Dave and Ben. Dave's dreamy eyes, Ben just cannot resist. We actually
He's not the only one that can't resist him.
This is true.
Hello.
This is very true. And a little bit, we got into 3D printing a little bit with Dave last week, which was really interesting.
And a lot of ITAR redacted.
A lot of things just, Dave was like, yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm like, that's great. Moving on, I guess. So good. Okay, so in regards to that particular show and other things, we are going to get into some of those comments. Let's see. So the first one comes from Patreon, actually, from Grubby. Grubby. Yeah, right? Okay. It says, for the regular people that you claim to be, I guess that would be me, I just want to say how much I appreciate the depth you bring to the topics on the show. This is a shout out for all the work that happens before the cameras even roll. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. There is definitely a lot of work that goes into this. Again, anyone who is at the 250 and above who can see the rundown and all of the craziness when it happens, as it happens, sometimes things literally come together last second, last minute. And then for all of you who watched for a couple of weeks in a row now, we've had a couple of fun, interesting things where we say, and next week we're going to have so-and-so on, and then we don't. There's always some things, interesting things that happen there as well. So thank you, appreciate that. That of course comes with a lot of grace, a lot of patience, and a lot of trial and error on our part. We've been doing this for a little bit of a while now, so there's that. And our fearless leader Ben always manages to weather the storm for us like that. So that's we appreciate that you appreciate us. How's that, for instance? Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible anyway. We would just be sitting in an empty room talking to each other, which we do anyhow. I mean, we're friends, so there's that part of it. But it's nice to be able to share the conversation with you as well. So thank you for that opportunity. Next comment comes off of Patreon as well, actually from X Arrow, saying, introduce a new mini segment of the show, the Maston Moment. I like that idea. Each week share a tidbit from Dave Maston, like a photo of their launch or landing mount or details on broadsword, etc. You know you want to.
Oh yeah, we definitely want to.
We definitely want to. But as you could see, we barely got an interview with him this last week. Dave was so unable to say things, as it were. And if it's me, I still can't hear Mike, so there's that. Hopefully Mike's not saying anything, just smiling and nodding and agreeing as he usually does anyhow, which is really fantastic.
Nope, I guess. Oh, poor Mike. Oh, no.
No, nothing. I don't know what's going on, but we'll figure that out in a second as we go on. Right? I mean, I think a Maston Moment would be...
It'd be beautiful.
Hilarious on so many different...
I just want to, have us ask a 3 to 4 long paragraph question about something ultra specific,
right? And
then Dave just goes, "I can't talk about that."
Right.
And that's your Maston Moment for this week.
That was part of the sort of like I said, like we've had a couple of things where we were saying, hey, so-and-so's going to be on, and then so-and-so can't be on for whatever reason. Things happen. Of course, weather happens. We have hurricanes, we have tornadoes, we have fire on a lot of the part of the country right now.
Yeah.
So all of those sorts of things happen, and then guests are unable to be on, which, that happens. And so Dave kind of hit for us, and he didn't get the okay to say all of the things that he may have wanted to say, and we just figured it out. So
that's fine.
It's
I mean,
okay.
that's aerospace for you, so
that's
can't
just
talk about everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. But so there's that. So, okay. So the next comment actually comes off of Facebook. It's really great that you guys are commenting on just about anywhere and everywhere that you want to comment on. So, and we do read them all, I promise. It's just trying to, get down to the few 5 or 6 that we really, really like and want to focus on can sometimes be a challenge. But this one comes from David Connolly. It says, what was the ISRO launch video sped up? It looks like it left the launch platform really quickly. Ironically, this would be a little bit more of a mic toss, but you and I can discuss that.
I just heard Mike.
Hear me now?
I
Yes, we
did
can.
hear Mike.
You guys hear me now?
I can. Can you hear us?
I can. So actually, with that video, that was the actual speed. I did not speed up the video for that when we showed that. And so, yeah, that's the actual speed. And that's a combination of the liquid and solid rockets that they used for that. That's why it lifts off the pad so quickly.
Yep.
For the PSLV rocket.
Right. I mean, there are some times where you do have to sort of condense the video a bit and sort of speed it up. Sometimes when things are docking with the International Space Station, I know some of those videos are a little bit sped up. But yeah, that one in particular, that's just the way that goes, yeah?
Yeah, dockings and EVAs, I mean, we don't have time to watch a 15-minute video for something that I can just, compress for that. And I apologize if there is anyone who doesn't like that we might do that, but just kind of more in the effort of time, I do that for the really slow type of videos where you have to have these very slow maneuvers so that you don't bump into anything or have any problems. But yeah. I usually don't speed up launch videos. I do speed up sometimes the SpaceX landing videos, like this week where we got the entire footage, from second stage separation all the way down to the ground. I did speed that up a bit, just in the sake of time. But I think that you might have been able to tell where it returns to normal speeds. So
yeah, as Cogen7 in the chat room says, today's footage of the Falcon 9 landing was sped up. That launch was not, though. When solids go. Yeah, they just that's both the best part about solids and the worst part about solids, because there's no real shutting them off.
Yeah,
they just sort of
you're committed.
Go forever. That's hilarious. Was there anything else that we missed that you wanted to comment on the other 2 comments? Just while we can actually hear you now.
I just, the only thing I wanted to say about the Maston moment is we might want to, but just like you guys were saying, I doubt that he would want to. Dave Maston, I mean.
The great thing about Dave is that he's always so willing to sort of, to try it anyway. So you can always just sort of softball something at him. He's on Twitter. He's actually quite responsive. D Maston on Twitter, and then Maston Space Systems is also on Twitter. You can always just throw something at him and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And so there's that.
That would be hilarious, though, to have that, 2-minute lead-in for a question explaining something. Then he's just like, I can't talk about that. Yeah. Well, folks, that's been your Maston moment for this week. See you later.
It's sort of like our own version of Moment of Zen, right?
Yeah. And here is your moment of Zen.
And here's your Maston moment. No, can't talk about that. Thanks. Okay. Next.
Anyway, though.
I love it. Next comment comes off of YouTube, of course. SP123100. Should be 1,000, I feel like. You should change your username. It says, I've been impressed at what the ISRO have achieved. They, of course, the Indian Space Launch Provider is what we're saying there. Yeah, is it Indian Space Research Organization?
Yep, that's right.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate you whispering that so I could pick up on that. Have achieved on their comparatively modest budget, especially their Mars orbiter. Do you know whether this mishap will affect the launch of the Lunar X Prize payloads early next year? I feel that a problem with this fairing jettison should be quicker to remedy than an issue with one of the stage engines. I hope they are swift to return to flight. Yeah, first of all, we of course hope that. And I don't think so. Mike, do you have any more information on that?
Well, I mean, we probably are safe to assume that there will be some delays to all of the missions that are scheduled to go on the PSLV. But just like SP-123-100 says, I mean, you know, for a payload fairing, you know, they already know what the problem was, that it was one of the explosive bolts that didn't fire to separate it on time, even though the commands were issued. So hopefully they will have a quick turnaround for that. But since the Google Lunar X Prize did extend their deadline to March of 2018, even if there is a delay, hopefully they'll still be able to launch in time.
Yeah, no, that's a good.
Yeah, the Indian Google Lunar X Prize team. I mean, Team Indus.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You know, it's funny. It's one of the unfortunate things about frangible nuts or exploding bolts. You can't really test that here on Earth. I mean, you can, but then you can't really reuse that one and go, great, that one worked. Let's use that one then.
Yeah, because you kind of destroy the bolt.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a little unfortunate. Sort of like, well, I don't know. The rest of the pack worked, so you just expect that one to do the same, which is a little unfortunate. But so there's that. But yeah, with the extension, I suppose there's a little bit better chance that this shouldn't delay that end goal, even if it does delay time-wise, like when they're able to launch. So there's that. Looking forward there.
Yeah.
Next comment comes off of YouTube from Sarah H. I'm surprised you didn't talk about, I can't talk apparently. I'm surprised you didn't talk about how the area where the James Webb Telescope was flooded during Harvey. I thought we did talk about that a little bit, did we not?
We actually did talk about that, but not on the live show itself. That was on one of our extra news segments that we released during the week. Mm-hmm. So that's where that comes. So this is a completely legitimate question, Sarah H. But hopefully you did get to see that little news pod that we put out about the hurricane that passed over Texas. So
for sure. And if you didn't, and if you're watching on YouTube, it should be below, or in our video section, over here, over there,
right over there.
We're just going to make Ben do all of the things now, and then he's just going to have to figure it out later.
Don't forget to turn autoplay off. That's a bit annoying. So.
It can be, but yeah. So we did discuss it in After Dark. If you're watching live here, of course, we will have a couple more news segments in After Dark, and then we will, of course, post them to our YouTube channel a little bit later on in the week. Yes, Jared.
Yeah, I just want to say also one of the reasons that we might not have talked about the area that the James Webb being tested at being flooded was because it didn't actually flood in the area that James Webb was at.
No news, no news.
At Johnson Space Center. So yeah, it was secure, and it's still they were able to maintain the test environment and are continuing to do so. So yeah,
which is great news anyway.
Working right through it. Hurricanes, we can work right through them. So.
Right, NBD. And then last comment for this week, also coming off of YouTube from Scooch, says, so when the X-37B launches on the Falcon 9, most of the rocket will be reused, correct? Just the fairing in the second stage will be lost? And how does that compare to Space Shuttle? And will this be the most reusable orbital flight ever? I applaud you, first of all, for sticking a whole bunch of questions into one question.
Yeah, that's like 5 questions.
And it wasn't a wall of text.
Right, yeah, and being very concise about it. I appreciate that as well. I don't have any clue what the answer to this one is. Mike, do you have any insight?
Well, yeah. I mean, since this launch already did take place on Thursday, the fairing and the second stage, of course, were not recovered, although SpaceX is in the process of being able to attempt recovery of their payload fairings, although I didn't hear about any sort of attempts like that for this mission. And yes, the X-37B is reusable because it's going to be landing under its own power, but let's not forget that SpaceX's own capsule, Dragon, is also reusable and has come back to Earth several times. Well, not necessarily reusable, I should say refurbishable, since they've only reflown one of the Dragon capsules that they've flown into space.
Sure.
But, I mean, their Dragons did return to Earth, though, is my point, just like the X-37B did, even if it's not exactly reusable. But comparing to the Space Shuttle, I mean, SpaceX still has to do refurbishments on their Dragons and on the first stage of the Falcon 9s, but I have a sneaky suspicion that the refurbishments that they have to do are way, way more affordable than the refurbishments that had to be done on the Space Shuttle. So, $2 billion a launch for Space Shuttle, I'm sure, is not what SpaceX is getting to refurbish their first stage.
I can't imagine, right? Goodness. I like Green Jim 2 in the chat room says, cue Dave Maston clip. I can't say. we should totally just like take that out of the last show and be able to throw it into any other show that we feel needs it.
That's good.
Yeah, Jared, anything else to add to that one?
No, Space Mike said it perfectly. So Yeah.
As he does. It's so annoying sometimes. Okay,
Super
so
expert.
that's.
I don't find it annoying.
No,
it's good to have that level of expertise.
I'm kidding.
So.
Of course I'm kidding. Our rocket specialist. That's why we call him that.
Sure,
That's why you're our resident astronomer. Like
gosh.
And I just sit here and point to both of you and you say things, and it's great. It just happens to work out.
But you're an important perspective as well. You are.
The short one.
That's not what I meant, but okay,
I know.
I'll take it.
Of course, not to be forgotten in any way, shape, or form, we want to make sure we give another thank you, a huge thank you to these Patreon supporters. These are the ground support crew. These people have given us anywhere between 1 penny and $2.49. You, of course, get your name in the show because we have not forgotten about you. We very much so thank you. I will talk a little bit longer so you can actually find your name in this list because it is kind of long, and that typeface is very tiny. You would get, of course, access to our exclusive Patreon-only hangouts, early access to After Dark as soon as it's available on demand. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Every single one of you, all of our Patreon supporters. If you are interested in becoming one of those, you can head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. And I think that about does it for this week, guys.
I think it does.
Yeah.
We're toast.
We are kind of toast. All right. So, in case you're wondering, next week, the scheduled guest of the week should be John. Oh, I didn't double check on how to pronounce this. John Amiable? Amiable?
John.
We're going to say
John will be on the show.
John is going to tell us how to
Changing
say
the
his
World.
last name next week on Changing the World, how to mine asteroids and terraform Mars and Venus profitably, which I think is amazing in one human lifetime using existing military technology. That is going to be interesting.
One human lifetime for terraforming a planet.
That's some Star Trek level stuff.
That is.
Right?
Wow.
I don't have a shirt for that one, you guys. I'm going to have to go shopping this week.
Me too.
That's a good one. I like that. I want that.
Maybe that'll be the shirt for next week already. I didn't have a shirt for this. I had to go shopping. All right. So thank you, of course, for joining us and continuing the conversation. Feel free to hit us up on, we're all on Twitter. Tomorrow's on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're all on Facebook.
That's right.
We're on YouTube. We're pretty much anywhere that you want us to be. We're there. And if we're not there yet, feel free to suggest it. Maybe we'll show up unexpectedly. So join us this week, next week, to continue the conversation online and in person with your friends and family. Thank you for joining us. This is Tomorrow. I suck at closes, you guys. I'm so sorry.
No, you did fine.
No, that was good.
It was awesome.
I mean, I got it in the end, but I kind of went.
Oh, she said something I really liked.
Yeah.
What was it?
Continue the conversation in person
in
online.
person. Yeah, in person. Continue. That was great.
Thanks.
That was.
There are times where there are sparks of genius. Just they're few and far between. Is the unfortunate part.
I really.
And it's usually after I say something really stupid. I've noticed. No, but sincerely, there are times where I'm just talking and things are coming out of my mouth and I say something really dumb, and then next thing you know, I say something really brilliant.
Yeah, no,
and it's a surprise to me as well, if that makes anyone feel any better about that at all.
I really like it. If someone could jot that down for me, we should add that in as a note to the. Sorry.
Thank you, Tarantula says I'm getting better. I am working on it. I will say that it is a constant.
There we go.
Constant effort. In no small part. I am in fact working on it. But that means that between here and there's a lot of weirdness that's going to come out of my mouth.
And today's weirdness is tomorrow's reason why. So
there you go.
There you
You
go.
know,
I appreciate that.
There was something else that I liked. How Jared closed up the interview segment. I don't know exactly how you worded it, but it was something along the lines of like, "Stay tuned. There's still more tomorrow." Or something like that.
I think I said, "Stay tuned. There's still more tomorrow in just a little bit."
Yeah, you did. Which is the best part because
like
you're like, "There's still more tomorrow in just a little bit, and I was like, oh, so
yes,
close.
the redundancy group.
That sounds like totally a carry-in thing to say.
Operation Redundancy is in full redundancy.
There's still more tomorrow.
That was a good show. I liked it.
We were on it today, weren't we?
Yeah, I thought it worked really well, other than the technical glitch with Mike. But I thought that was a pretty good save from Dutta putting the thing on the screen.
That was really good. It was weird. I was like, I really am only hearing me and Jared right now, and I thought any second that's just gonna click in. And like I said, I mean,
I didn't realize I didn't have any audio from him until you got into like the third comment, and he like looked at you guys and his mouth was moving and speaking, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there.
I can't hear him. Because
yeah, well,
I didn't realize it either because I didn't mute myself on Skype, and I'm sitting here looking at my wireless mic. I'm like, I'm getting signals. Everything's working just fine. What the heck's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because this got unplugged somehow.
That's funny. It was more funny than anything because I was like, I'm just not getting anything, and maybe he is just sitting there and smiling and nodding and agreeing. That's kind of what he does a lot of the times when Carrie-Ann just continues to talk, and there's really no way for anybody to say anything else when I'm just saying things. Yeah, see, it all just happened. Legitimately, that's okay. Screw you, buddy. You almost never agree with me, so that's obviously a lie, whatever's happening there.
Yep, no, I agree.
Okay, so are we going to do the extra news things with you on it?
No, I'm going to get out. I did before we get into news. So for those who don't know, we're trying out new Rundown software. It's called Rundown Creator from rundowncreator.com. Overall, it's generally been really great. Few gripes with it, but as with any system, blah blah blah. One of the things we wanted to be able to do was automate a lot of the show so that we didn't have to. It's a somewhat tedious process to build the rundown for Dutta to put all the clips in order, make sure they're named correctly, blah blah blah, and it sucks. And he has to spend a bit of time before the show to make all that happen. And PSN, who is an Escape Velocity patron, came to the rescue and built two applications for us. One of them looks at Rundown Creator and it pulls out all of the video tags from Rundown Creator and automatically builds our Casper CG rundown, basically tip to tail, like everything we need, automation and everything. And the second application actually looks at the Casper CG, and Casper CG is the system that we use to play back video clips and essentially build all of those social media, like when you see, Dutta, we're talking about, yeah, exactly that, right? So that's all done through Casper CG, all the graphic generation. CG stands for character generator. So the second application looks at all of the different media files, all the images, all the videos, all the templates, and everything else, and uploads it back into Rundown Creator so that when these guys are building their news items and stories and whatnot, they just drop their media on Google Drive, and all of this automation kicks into play and says, oh, hey, we noticed that you dropped that clip there. Here's what it's called, and here's the exact thing you need to enter into the rundown so that it will automate and work on Dutta's desk. So when Dutta comes in now, instead of having to spend a bunch of time building everything and make sure the automation's working, he hits like 3 buttons, and the whole rundown goes and builds itself. You ran entirely out of that new rundown system today, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so outside of probably some little tweaks that we're going to need to do, which have nothing to do with PSN and everything to do with our own workflow on our side and how those presets work, I think it worked brilliantly. And this was the first time, we've only been using the system for 2 weeks. Last week it was just kind of us getting used to the new system. This week was adding full automation, and we basically fully automated the show with PSN's help. So I wanted to say on the air in After Dark, thank you so much, PSN, for making that happen. It is truly incredible and a game changer for not just this show, but when we do science, when we bring back Cities. And for those wondering, Cities is on permanent hiatus right now. We'll figure out a way to bring it back, just not right now. Cities, Tech, all those other shows. This is going to make life so much easier for us and so much better. I think and because we no longer have to worry about these things, we can focus our time on building other elements and making the show itself better, right? So we're not worried about things like naming conventions and things like that. We just worry about how we tell you stories and how we convey the data as opposed to the technical side, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to say thank you and let everyone know that we've moved to new rundown software. So give us a little bit of leeway in the coming weeks as we figure it out and try to make all that go.
I love it.
So Gutta is going to...
That's funny, Smokey.
What's he say? Do the whoa thing from Fire...
Wash.
Oh, wash.
Can you not read from that far
Not
away?
from this far.
Really? Because you're the one with perfect eyes.
I am. Yep, pretty much.
Click, click, click.
Yep,
click,
there you go.
click.
So there you go. So anyhow, once again, thank you, PSN, and let me get out of frame, and you guys can do news.
Get out of here. Do we need to redo the camera?
Yeah, I'll do it.
And then
I'm sorry, the camera?
Camera.
The camera. We got to get to the lunar colony.
Get to the landa.
No.
You got to get to Mars as fast as you can. You got to get there.
What was it that Ben was
Before
saying?
you get out of there.
Ben was saying something to me earlier.
You got to
about,
give
like,
a huge amount of tax money.
You're getting better.
What?
Ben says that he's trying to convince me that I like puns and I like dad jokes, which I don't.
He does. She does.
I don't. And
Dad jokes are amazing. I don't know who you're kidding.
they're not, though.
I love dad jokes.
Here's the thing, though. Yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
Actually, it's scientifically fact-proven facts.
It's not. They're terrible. And, yeah, so he just keeps trying to... he keeps trying to convince me of such things, even though it's not true, and they don't exist, and they're terrible.
They do exist. Dad jokes don't just not exist because you decided that they don't exist.
Oh, they shouldn't exist.
All right, I think you have camera 3 up now, right? All right, I think you're ready.
Ben's a professional.
It's super.
Yeah, this is what I do.
It's super bright though.
Kind of like me.
No, nothing like you at all.
It's kind of like when I go to the beach and take my shirt off.
It is significantly
It's
brighter
very
than
bright
the other
outside.
shot.
Yeah, it is. Go to 3 up here, and then take this little lever and drag
Yes,
that down.
Pete, we do, in fact, we do have mail to open.
Right in there. That's about right. Jared, look up. Look at 3.
I take it that's 3.
Yep.
Where?
Pretty much.
That's about right. I like that. His
Whatever
skin
happened
tone's
to our
decent.
tally light on the camera inside the newsroom?
Is that not working?
No, it hasn't worked for I don't even know how long.
They go to 4. It works.
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Well,
it
you're too
works.
fat. I can't see. Move.
Move, fat ass.
What do you mean it works?
It's obscured by the lens. The lens is bigger than the camera body, so
I literally
you
cannot
can't see it.
I see a red light, but the lens is compensating for
Yeah,
something.
but now, all right, now it went white.
Nope.
Okay, well, it works.
Cool. If you can make it so the short person can see it, that would really help.
I just need you to grow a little.
Hi, Internet.
You
Hi,
gave
Internet.
me a freaking stool to stand on.
He didn't give that to you.
You're right. Thank you, Dada. Still not enough.
Hey, I make things happen.
Do you?
Yeah. All right. What do we?
Hang on there.
Do we know how we're getting in and out of this thing? By the way, no, we're still winging this part. Fan-freaking-tastic.
Oh, are you talking to tankers? That may not end well.
So yeah,
No, I was
especially
talking
if
to the chat.
Tankers makes Mike mute again. Okay, so Mike, you're up first, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You just want to lead it into something simple, just like. So for those of you who missed out,
Yeah, I'm definitely not making it nearly as complicated as Ben made it last time, of course. Yeah, how well do you know me, man?
I trust your abilities.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We might have to do this once or twice, though. Just FYI.
We'll see.
All right, Jared, you stop typing. You're so freaking loud. I love you, though. Okay, ready? And we're not going to black or anything. Yeah, exactly one of those. Okay. All right, so on this last week of episode.
That's all right. It's all right. I messed that up. I was looking down too.
It's okay.
Where?
You don't know when I'm going to talk, so it's all right. Moment of silence. All right, so on this last Orbit 10.33, or episode 10.33, what do we want to say there? Episode? You can leave all of this in, it's totally fine by me. Okay.
Oh my god.
So on this last episode, on this last live show, This is After Dark, right? And I can still swear because I really feel like I want to now.
These are hard, aren't
Ooh, yeah, I know. No. It's I can just close my eyes, and when I open them, I'm on camera. Welcome back. So on this last live show,
No, welcome back. We're...
Okay. I hate you so much.
Yeah.
All right, everyone's looking at camera. Everyone's happy. Everyone's happy to be here. It's really the deal.
Right. Oh, I'm not. Get out of here.
I know. Any second. So on this last live show, there's a little bit of news that we didn't quite get to in the news segment, so we wanted to feature that now. Mike, you had some interesting information about the Lunar COTS program. What's going on over there?
Yeah, lunar COTS might actually be a real thing. So what this is that NASA has pretty much announced that they are preparing a solicitation to have another competition like the COTS program to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. And for this one, they're serious about sending cargo to the lunar surface. Awesome. And with this is all based on a request for information that NASA put out back in May. And they've since evaluated the results of that, and there's several companies that they are expecting to bid on commercial cargo services to the lunar surface. So this is really exciting, and there's just a couple of companies that are expected to bid on this, and this all comes from actually a testimony meeting before Congress where representatives from NASA, as well as Moon Express, Astrobotic, and Blue Origin talked about the benefits of this type of plan. So first off, one of the companies, Moon Express, they're already participating in a lunar program that is called Lunar Catalyst. And with that has been developing, it's a really small program, but is developing technologies to enable soft touchdown and landings on the surface of the moon. And with Moon Express, the vehicle that you see on the screen there is called MX-1E. It's their new design for their lander. And they claim that they could start launching next year. I believe their launch provider is still going to be Rocket Lab from New Zealand. And they better start launching next year if they hope to win the Google Lunar X Prize by March of 2018. But this is just another program that's an example of life after the Google Lunar X program. And speaking of the GLXP, one of the other teams that dropped out of the GLXP race, Astrobotic, is also expected to bid. And with their program, they're looking at a lot of the results from this, and they're really interested in what they could do with their commercial services. They've already been reaching out to several companies who kind of at this point want to send some frivolous stuff to the moon, but there's also some experiments that they want to send as well. Now, the thing that I'm really excited about is Blue Origin, who also testified at this meeting on Thursday, and they have some bigger plans than Moon Express or Astrobotic, at least initially. Under their proposal, they're calling Blue Moon, they would have a system that would be capable of delivering several tons of cargo to the lunar surface. And that vehicle would, they're hoping to launch that on NASA's Space Launch System, I'm sure, kind of as a political move to get support for this. Or even Blue Origin's own New Glenn rocket once that monstrosity starts flying. So I'm unclear in this image whether or not that was the one that is their Blue Moon that would be able to deliver several tons. It looks more along the size of like the smaller kind of classes to have small instruments and payloads go to the surface of the moon, but I'm unsure about that since there's few details about their exact architecture for their Blue Moon program at the moment. But in any case, this is looking more and more like a real thing, and it tells us a little bit more about the direction that NASA wants to go in for our human exploration plans.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. If you're interested in these news stories or more, join us every Saturday live, 2100 UTC on tomorrow.com or tomorrow.tv. What do you? I don't know how to get out of these either because that's also not scripted. We should put those in.
It's also 1800
UTC.
Oh,
UTC.
It used to be 2100 too.
Right.
Neat.
Take it back from the cut back to the studio.
Yeah. So
Yeah, obviously, Mike's not going to talk anymore. It's just me.
You don't have to cut it, so it'll be from Carrie Ann, and you can say blah blah blah. Really, what we want to do is say we want to talk about this last week's show because there's going to be a box up there that they can click on that brings them back to this live show that we've just recorded.
Okay.
So something along the lines of, Awesome. Thank you so much, Space Mike. And for more news from this last week, make sure to click over, click over here to watch episode 10.33. We also had an interview with Stuart talking about the history of SpaceX. And don't forget, we have live shows every Saturday at 1800 Coordinated Universal Time.
Oh my God, yeah, we need to script those in. Like, I'm just not going to remember any of that.
Do you want to write that down really quick? Put it in the script?
Can I do that?
Yeah, just pop back to your regular rundown creator view.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's just, no, I can figure it out. It's just, I don't have the regular rundown creator view because it's annoying and I don't need it for the show, so I don't have it on. Not to sound like a curmudgeon, sorry.
Bah.
It's like not what I mean, but at the same time, like...
Ow.
That sounded like that hurt.
It was good.
Should I do my neck?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Here we go. First of all, my hands. Okay.
Yep. Ready? Go. Oh, yeah.
Gross.
I don't think...
Do one more.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That felt good.
Half the internet was cringing right there.
What do you want me to say?
All right. So you can get out of, saying thank you to however.
Yeah.
Right. And then say, for more news from this last week's show, visit episode 10.33. Well, we also have more, something along the lines of episode 10.33. We have to put it in your words, otherwise it's not going to work.
That's fine.
And then we had on Stuart Money. It was Stuart Money this last time, right? Talking about the history of SpaceX.
Mr. Money.
Yep. And this last part of it needs to be fairly quick and concise. It cannot exceed. So you can say thank you to Mike, but it needs to be no more than 20 seconds.
Understood.
That's it. Just blah blah blah.
And then every live show's So
Saturday.
You just want thanks, Mike. Last week's show 10:33. Stuart Money, SpaceX, and
live shows every Saturday at 1800 UTC.
I don't think that's what you want.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I don't think that's what you want. Just run it through me like how you would actually say it. And I'll just
something along the lines of like, thanks, Mike. For more information on additional space news, make sure to check out our previous episode over at 10.33 by clicking right over here. We also had Stuart Money on talking about the history of SpaceX. Don't forget, we have live shows every Saturday at 1800 Coordinated Universal Time. And it drives me bonkers when the hosts of SpaceX say Universal Coordinated Time.
Coordinated Universal Time.
It is Coordinated Universal Time. I know it is UTC.
It's not Universal Time Coordinated?
Yeah.
So do you want me to say UTC or Coordinated Universal Time?
I say coordinated. You can do either. It doesn't matter.
Okay. All right.
What's a UTC?
What's an UTC? It's French. I don't know how to pronounce it.
What time is it in spacecraft event time?
Well,
it depends on the spacecraft.
I mean, so do you want... are you referencing that that's a TLA and you want me to explode that? Or
Yes.
So I get that.
Suggested, not required.
Yeah, I get that it's a TLA, but common TLAs like NASA and whatnot are allowed, and UTC is like on the cusp, and so I'm 50-50.
We're trying to reach.
I know, but
too wicked. Thanks.
I know, but I think my thing with UTC and why I'm on the cusp is because you're going to have to figure out what time that is locally anyhow. So if you search for 1800 UTC, it's going to explain it for you. Most people, I don't think, are going to, in their head, know their UTC offset and like what time that means for them without doing a little bit of Googling. I'm 50-50. I can be sold either direction.
I just think be inclusive if you're trying to reach a new audience.
I guess, but I think it's easier to search for UTC. It's easier to figure out what we're talking about if you type in UTC into Google than it does to type in Coordinated Universal Time.
Pretty sure Google's smart enough to figure both out.
No, I know, but
you may not even remember Coordinated Universal Time, and if you type in CUT, it's not going to come up the same way.
Right. So this is why I think UTC is one of those that's kind of a I can sell that in either direction, so I'm 50-50. I can make a valid argument.
Does the chat room care?
I feel like we've been saying UTC on the show for 10 years now, so why change now? But again, just like Ben said, I mean,
Oh, I
would
actually
do it
say
however
coordinated
you feel
universal
like.
time every time.
Mike, while I don't disagree with you, here's the thing: if this is a short snippet that is intended to grab an audience, the people that have watched us for 10 years say UTC. It doesn't matter to them; they know what that is. For somebody that doesn't,
They still don't know what coordinated universal time is.
But
right? I mean, if you don't know what UTC is, do you know what coordinated universal time is? So you're Googling either way. Like a lot of the TLAs, you say and they make sense, right? You go, instead of TLA, you say a 3-letter acronym. You can immediately go, oh, I know what that means. UTC, you say coordinated universal time. The messed up thing there is because it's French, it doesn't actually, like, none of that actually works when you convert it to English. So it's not as simple as, oh, hey, I say coordinated universal time, I suddenly know what you're talking about. If we said Greenwich, based on that, we should say Greenwich Mean Time or Zulu. Actually, Zulu is still technically allowed. GMT is not. Zulu converted over to UTC.
I would argue against adding different units.
Zulu and coordinated universal time are the same unit.
Generally.
Oh, wow. This is a debate. Okay. So, how much time... only the live shows, blah, 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 has to be 20 seconds or under, yeah?
From the moment I put up the slate that has like all the things that you can click on, that has to be 20 seconds or less. So you can say, thanks, Mike, that was awesome, blah, 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 blah. For more information, from that moment when you start talking about the previous show and the next week's show, that moment forward needs to be 20 seconds or less.
Okay, so everything between last week's show is 10:33, clicking right over here,
Yep.
Stuart Money, History of SpaceX, and live shows every Saturday, 1800 coordinated universal time. That's 20 seconds.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or less.
Right. Thank you, Tarantula. I appreciate that. Okay. And we get to do all this again with Jared's story. Isn't everybody excited? I wasn't joking when I was talking about the craziness that happens. Held us, because if we do Australian time zones, it'll take forever, and some of them are in half hours.
Oh my God, Adelaide is in a half time zone. It's super annoying.
All right. All right, thanks, Mike. I really appreciate all of your insight every week. So, nope. How do I get from thanks to last week?
Do you want me to respond? Just be like, yeah, no problem.
No, I mean, you can. I don't think it's required, though. Last week, if you're interested in more news, if you would like more news, check out our live show from last week. Just turn and be like, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Always appreciate all of your insight every week. If you are interested in more news and other things like that, check out our show from last week, episode 10.32, by clicking right over here. Of course, we had Stuart Money, who was talking with us about the history of SpaceX, and you can always join us live every Saturday at 1800 Coordinating Universal Time.
Exactly like that.
But not awkward?
10:33.
Except it's 10:33, not 10:32.
Did I say 10:32?
Yeah.
I didn't even hear myself.
Yeah, I forgot to let you finish.
That was perfect, though.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah,
like
that
that.
was
It wasn't
perfect.
awkward. It was perfect. Just 10:33 instead of 10:32.
Great. For sake. Can we just pretend? Oh, you guys, this sucks. All right, thanks, Mike. Always appreciate all of your insight every week. If you are interested in more news like that, you can check out our last week's show, 10.32, by clicking right over here. My life. Okay, 10.33. Last week's show was 10.32. I think that's my problem. All right, this last week's,
Yeah.
right? I think that's exactly what keeps going on in my head. All right,
Our latest show. How's that?
our latest show.
Is that better?
Sure, no, it's not, but that's fine. We'll just figure it out later. Can I? All right. I don't need to point too, right? Because that's really
You don't
also
have to
tripping
point.
me up.
No, I mean you can if you want.
All right, Mike, appreciate that update. If you are interested in news like this or more, feel free to check out this last show, episode 10.33. We also were talking with Stuart Money about the history of SpaceX, and you can always join us live at 1800 Coordinated Universal Time every Saturday.
That was awesome.
Because apparently I don't know what day we do the show either. It's like, join us, I don't know, sometime.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
No, it's not. Don't ever say that to me again.
Oh, I need my iPad so I can follow the chat room. We'll do it live. All right, next up, Jared.
Is me.
I don't know about you guys, but I think this is all magical.
Isn't this magical? You just see everything is going on around here, and you're just like, oh my God, that's amazing. Right?
Sure.
Sure, Jared.
This is Carrie-Ann's
Shut
not
up.
happy face. Have you noticed?
Intros and outros are hard, man.
I'm like sweating right now.
You and me both.
Why are you sweating?
Because he's sweating me doing it right.
He's from the mythical lands of
Or
Arizona.
wrong.
And it's like...
Because it's 734 degrees on the surface of the sun
Kelvin.
over there.
Thank you. Sake. All right.
Do it.
What the hell are we talking about? Hold on. What are we talking? Oh, Cassini. Is this 2? I don't even know. Is it 25? Where are we?
Yeah, or 2.
All right. Everybody's ready? So there was a little bit of news that we didn't quite get to in this last episode, 10.33. So, Jared, we were talking about the long goodbye with Cassini.
That's right.
What's going on with that?
Well,
Jared, she was perfect. What are you doing to her? What are you doing, man?
I blew it.
That was a brilliant intro. Oh, Jared.
Okay, just slice it.
Of all the times to blow it. Oh, I hate myself.
No, to be fair, wait, I'm insulted because that just means I won't be able to do that again.
Oh, there was something I wanted to actually ask about my story. Is it okay to do my story as if we're presenting it on Thursday? So I talk about tomorrow Cassini's mission is ending?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Cool.
Mention the date, though. Tomorrow on Friday. Whatever.
Well, since we're going to post it on Thursday, I'm just going to say tomorrow.
Yeah, but remember, people are going to come back and watch this after the fact.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
have absolute times in there if you can. 'Cause
Gotcha.
Remember, we're not
Yes.
relatives. That's actually a
Your-
pet peeve of mine in like
your-
space news.
Your frame of reference can be like it's tomorrow, but you also need to understand that it is going to be posted and will exist on the internet forever.
Yeah.
Yep. Einstein talks a lot about frame of reference. So, yep.
All right.
Sorry.
What the hell did I say?
Thanks.
2? There we go. Thank you, Mike. You're in the black background. Right? Because, like, otherwise I got nothing. So there were a few other things that we didn't get a chance to talk to on this last episode, 10.33. Jared, the long goodbye with
so
Cassini.
long.
Tell me what's going on.
So Cassini has completed its final journey through the gap between the interior of Saturn's rings and the cloud tops of Saturn's atmosphere, and it's currently heading on its way now to end its mission in the atmosphere of Saturn. Now Cassini, the spacecraft that we have at Saturn, has undoubtedly been one of humanity's greatest expeditions of exploration in terms of science knowledge that we've gained from it, technical knowledge from designing the spacecraft, and simply the endurance of Cassini as well. It's been in space for nearly 20 years, just a few weeks shy of 20 years. Now, Cassini has traveled 7.9 billion kilometers, executed 2.5 million commands, collected 635 gigabytes of data, discovered 6 moons at Saturn, performed 162 flybys of Saturn's moons, completed 294 orbits of the Saturnian system, taken 453,048 images. Data has been used in 3,948 published papers. It's burned its engine 360 times, and it has shown that 27 countries can cooperate on a mission of incredible discovery. Now, before Cassini, there were things that were considered science fiction, like a small ball of ice generating enough energy to have an ocean. That was the realm of books and films of science fiction. But images like this from Enceladus have shown us that it actually is scientific fact. The idea of a liquid cycle on a celestial body was strictly driven by water. That was until we looked at Titan with Cassini, and we saw that even though the temperatures there are extremely cold on Titan, minus 180 degrees Celsius, that there's still a liquid cycle happening there. It's not happening with water, it's happening with methane. And then we look at the rings, which were considered a old but complex structure, and we now know from early results gathered by the science in these final 22 grand finale orbits that the rings are likely very young in terms of the age of things in our solar system, just 100 million years old, and they're even more complex than we could even dream up. And the bittersweet part about this incredible mission that Cassini has done is that tomorrow, September 15th, 2017, it all comes to an end. When Cassini was fabricated, it wasn't known that Titan would be so close to the prebiotic chemistry that we've seen. The ingredients for life are at Titan. It's just that the energy isn't there. And we didn't know that Enceladus was potentially the best place for life off of Earth present in our solar system. So because of that, because we did not have that knowledge before Cassini, the spacecraft itself wasn't built to the specifications of cleanliness that, say, something landing on the surface of Mars is. So in order to prevent contamination, it was decided that with what little fuel Cassini has left, that it would be sent to plunge into Saturn's atmosphere. And as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow, September 15th, 2017, it will do just that. We're going to have the high-gain antenna of Cassini aimed at Earth and set Cassini in a mode that will constantly transmit data from its instruments back to the Earth, inadvertently becoming our first atmospheric probe going into Saturn. Now, from entry into Saturn's atmosphere, which Cassini will be doing at 120,000 kilometers an hour, to Cassini losing control, losing contact with Earth, and burning up in Saturn's atmosphere, that will be about 60 seconds from touching the top of the atmosphere to Cassini burning up. The entry should begin right around 11:54 Coordinated Universal Time, or 4:54 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time on tomorrow, Friday, September 15th, 2017. And loss of signal is expected to occur 60 seconds later at 11:55 Coordinated Universal Time, 4:55 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, also Friday, September 15th, 2017. And probably the most poetic thing about this is that Cassini will now become a permanent part of the planet that it studied. So it spent 13 years around Saturn, and now it's going to become a part of Saturn. So wow. Beautiful end to an incredible mission.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. And actually, if you're interested in more information about Cassini and the entire mission, you can go ahead and check out tomorrow's episode 10.15. Although if you're interested in more news and other things like that, you can look at our last week's show, 10.33. We talked with Stuart Money about the history of SpaceX, which was actually a lot of fun. And you can always join us live every Saturday at 1800 Coordinated Universal Time.
Got it.
Nailed it. Both of you. That was awesome. Good
Yeah.
job.
You had
Good
a lot
job.
of stuff to say, man. I was looking at that like, and you keep going.
Yeah.
So, and internet, do you generally like the smaller, like what we're doing here with these smaller space bits that we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Are those Jaded Animal says bravo?
Thank you. It's hard not to cry during that too.
Yeah, I could feel your emotion at the end there. That was very poetic. That was great. Good job, dude.
All right, everyone seems to like the space bits. They're great. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what we're doing is we're just we used to plan for 5 news items plus launches in the live show. We're now doing 3 news items plus launches in the live show, and then taking those extra 2 and dropping them into After Dark. And we basically, even in this last rundown, I moved them straight to After Dark. I didn't even have them in the main part of the rundown. I'm just like, we're always going to do 2 in After Dark. And it seems to fit right? It still felt like we did about 20, 30 minutes of news.
Did you want to come on the?
Yeah, I can do that. Hang on. Let me,
I mean, you don't have to.
You don't like the dismembered voice?
No.
Disembodied voice?
It's weird.
News was what, 22 minutes, 23 minutes?
Yeah, news was long enough the way it was.
Yeah, it felt about right.
And news usually is long enough the way it is.
Yeah,
typically.
so I think, it's ever so slightly dark over here. I wonder if I should rotate those around.
Yeah, why did you move that one way over there? I thought it was over there.
It was not. It's always been on a thing.
No.
Yeah, because they're yes, because they're. You want to know how I know it's always been there?
I know it hasn't always been there because these 2 used to go like this.
They used to go like what?
These 2 used to go like this. Now this one does this and this one does this. It used to be over here.
We did one show with them up with paper filters or something over them, and then we took them down and then we put them back up right where they were, and we haven't moved them since.
Yeah, we even put tape marks where they were. Okay. Well, here's part of the problem is they can't go on these. There's no support on the ones that are what is that, parallel to us? They can only go on the ones that are perpendicular to us. So if it was over there, it would have had to be like way over there. And I'm pretty sure I didn't put one way over there.
Okay.
We used to have one with a fill light in the middle. Anyhow.
I think I like that we're doing deeper news during the news segment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making the news stories last longer.
Mm-hmm.
In general,
and I think the quality of the news is better in that respect.
I'm sorry, say it again. Is what?
I think the quality of the news is better in that respect.
Sure.
And so it makes sense that 3 news stories plus whatever launches there are.
What about the internet?
Is about right for timing, and then push these to the end.
Internet agree with Dutta? I think I agree with Dutta. I just want to make sure you guys agree. Dwight, I think we got the 3-point lighting down. I think there's just some, like, I'm at the edge of where we're at. Also, you can't do 3-point lighting on this set. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. Yeah, it's a set, right? It's not an interview area, right? It's a full-on set. We actually used to do 3-point lighting out here, and it was awful because you can't, like, what we need to do with this is amazing. I am going to Adelaide, yes. That's about as much as I can say on that at this time. I can just say I'm going there.
I'm not going.
Ow! Gonna hurt my back putting my mic on. Because that's the kind of thing I would do.
I was just gonna say
that's not
only
where you put
Jared
it.
would.
That's not where you're supposed to put it.
You can't tell me what to do. You're not my mom.
Well.
You're not my mom. You can't tell me what to do.
I'm not your mother.
Oh my God, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, like that was my Maston moment. Andrew, he said, Ben, whoops, he said, Ben, nice Maston moment.
Oh, look at this thing.
Oh yeah, we have markers now.
Oh yeah. So
we didn't just buy one.
Here's what
Ben said, and I quote, and I kid you not on this one. He said,
"Oh my
I
gosh,
want to give everyone choices," and I was like,
amazing.
Since When did you want to give people choices?
That's
Here's
amazing.
the problem. So everyone who comes here, as you guys may or may not know, can sign the set. Every guest who comes here, I'm sorry. So everyone who's on the show has an opportunity, and in person has an opportunity to sign one of the sides of the set. And we had Sharpie markers here, but then they disappeared. And so
Nobody knows what happened.
No, we had a Sharpie marker.
well,
Yeah, but I
now
still
we
think one
have
of
a
our guests
package of
took it.
Sharpies. Hang on, I'll just there you go. Whatever I can.
So that everyone has options.
Yes. So now we have many different colors. We have the entire rainbow.
Yeah, we freaking do.
Many colors.
Yep.
Including like electric pop colors, apparently. Optic orange, techno blue, nano blue, because those are different. Electric
are.
pink, and ultraviolet.
I don't feel like so. If you write in ultraviolet, are you going to be able to see it?
No.
I just want to grab like 3 of them at the same time and have like a rainbow signature.
Someone may.
Space Mike.
So they sit back here. You know, I should take a picture of this and
You should.
Oh,
What are you sitting on
the
now?
mic pack just
Okay.
jammed right into my butt. Ooh, wasn't expecting that.
All right. Yeah. You
What's
good?
that?
So, a one Pete Rizzett, who
Pete?
I assume is not currently in West Melbourne.
Yeah, you shouldn't be there, Pete. Hopefully you're out of there, dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Pete sent us a thing that's not from Pete himself necessarily. I don't know how much you want me to say because I don't want to
It's fine.
I don't want to embarrass anybody.
Well, embarrass away.
So Pete has a lot of talent running through his family. Not just Pete himself, of course. His wife and his 2 girls are all amazing family.
For those who don't know, Pete wrote our Roku channel. So if you watch on Roku, and it was recently repaired, so you can watch on Roku again. You can thank Pete for that. He's
Thanks,
also the head programmer, and by head programmer I mean only programmer, behind Launch Library, which is a very neglected by me. ToWicked, basically, Pete and ToWicked have taken it and run with it. I'm like, cool, you guys are in good hands. Have fun. But Launch Library, which powers so many applications at this point, right, with launch updates and launch data, chances are if you're going to the website, or if you're going to an app that gives you launch status updates, it's powered by Launch Library. Pete wrote that, the database and all that other fun jazz. So we've known Pete for
Many years.
Ever.
Pete
Yeah.
is, I mean, I know the cats like them, but you may have gotten rid of them. Still has some Space Vidcast chairs from back in the day.
But when we were doing Space Shuttle launch coverage, we had some director's chairs that had the Space Vidcast basically, it was either embroidered or silk screened.
No, I think they were embroidered.
On the back, and we didn't want to have to, at the time we did the show in Minnesota, we didn't have to fly the chairs to and from Minnesota every time. So I think either Pete or someone down in Florida just hung on to them for us. And then we'd go grab them, set them up with a tent, do the shuttle coverage, and then be like, here, take these back. And then once we were done with shuttle coverage, we were like, you want to keep them? Otherwise, we're going to throw them away. And so,
They're yours.
Yep.
So Pete sent us a thing that Miss Emily drew. It says, and I love this note. It says, Emily drew this. Hope you enjoy, Pete. Which is so Pete to me. It's like the most matter of fact.
Here's where it's from.
These are the things you need to know. Thank you. Which is really amazing. And then inside is this really great.
Oh, look
Right?
at that.
How are we going to hang on?
I know. Here you go,
There's
Mike.
even a beard.
You hold it up over Jared's. Oh, that's so cool.
I figured I had to. Here. I don't know.
No,
how
I think
to,
just hold it in front of yourself. Okay, that works too. Hold it right in front of Jared.
Right in
just
front
like
of
that.
Jared. Perfect.
Yeah, just like that. Hang on. Let me try to get it closer to the camera. See if we can do a little magic focusing, maybe? Question mark. Ooh.
Look at it. That's great.
Yeah, it's really, really great.
That's really well done.
Adorbs.
Yeah.
That's really hard to.
Carrie Ann comes first.
I
No.
also very
Carrie Ann's
much.
talking, and I'm like, just stop.
I was just saying, I very much appreciate that I'm the one speaking.
I'm like, enough. Enough, woman.
Whatever.
Betty with a
We
beard.
both have our hands up, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm telling you to shut up. That's
Wait, hang on, it's signed right there. E.
yes. Yes, and Miss E signed it, which is really amazing.
Well done.
So we have
I hate doing intros and outros. Why do you make me do those every week?
pretty much. Green Jim 2 says it has a better beard than Ben.
I mean, that's not untrue.
Are you a secret redhead, Ben?
No, if you look at my beard, there's no camera that's right on me. Hang on. Can you hit the autofocus button? Hit the autofocus on 3.
How close should I get?
Maybe it's
all
autofocus not
blurry and
working.
like dreamy right now. Jesus.
This is my beard. This is my blur beard. This is dream sequence beard.
This is how the beard actually looks good. You blur it.
All right, I'll do this.
Dream sequence.
Oh wait,
Stop moving.
right as I move it.
Toby says
We made it worse.
It got
Toby
worse.
agrees.
I got it.
Toby agrees, saying that beard is very optimistic.
Oh my god, I hate you all. It's amazing. All right. Hang on. Who's here? Yeah. I don't know if I'm framed, but there's the beardal region. It's a little
Beardal region.
It's a little splotchy somewhere down in here.
Yeah, trim up that neck,
I don't have the neckline quite. Oh yeah, the neck itself needs trimming. I don't have the line quite right. I think it's a little too low. I think it needs to come up just a pinch. But yeah. Yep. That beard is very optimistic. Thanks, Toby. Yeah.
But still, thank you, Emily. It's adorable. I really like it. I'm gonna frame that. It's gonna go somewhere in the house for sure. For sure. Very, very cool. Thank you so much. We had the pleasure of hanging out with Team Rizit a couple years ago at Disney.
Oh yes, we did.
We get to hang for the day. That was fun.
Turn up the volume.
Why?
Because I'm pretty sure this is with a lift off.
6, 5, 4, 3,
Watching the COTS 2 abort.
1, 0, and lift off. We've had a cutoff. Liftoff did not occur.
Is that George?
Oh, George Diller. Lift off. Cut off. I mean, cut off.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. We've had a cutoff. Liftoff did not occur.
Oh, it's just magic.
I love how matter of fact he is about it.
He was always
Lift off.
There was one other thing that I wanted to show real quick. I thought it was really funny how during the SpaceX launch this week, the Boeing video that they played at the very end of it, they kind of pretty much like said our motto. Dutta, if you can pull up the L202 video, it's only like 5 seconds or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think
Great.
Stoge said something like
so
that.
Space Mike, I should bring this up. The way the automation works now, he can't easily see that. If you have a number of like an A5, like a rundown number. And by the way, speaking of
that,
Team Rizit, stay safe.
Speaking of, well, I'll let you do that, and then I'll tell you.
A3.
You got it, A3. The A3 video.
I know. Stoge had mentioned something along those lines about how Boeing apparently watches too much of our show because they've just decided to go ahead and take all the things that we normally say.
B2.
B2, and there was a second one.
To wicked. There's no way to ban the movement of kitchen utensils during the webcast. I feel so. I spent some time.
Looks like it's not inserted
to
in there
be
anymore.
fair-
Never mind.
To be fair to that point,
The X-37B, flying tomorrow's technologies today.
hey, I didn't know we had
Call
an experiment
Everett.
on that super secret space plane. Oh, sorry, you're right.
Shh, we can't talk about that.
Oh.
Us
You
and,
just brought it up.
Us and Maston can't talk. No.
So to be fair about the crank tank ting 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 sounds.
Yeah, well, people are working. man.
Right.
People are working, and that includes the kitchen staff. And there's stuff that has to be done. And, you know, I will say that from experience that no matter if you're saying 10, 9, 8, 7, or 3, 2, 1, 0, somebody's going to order coffee. I know this. So, you know, it is a working environment. It's 24/7. It continues to go. And that's what happens. If you wanted everything to completely shut down, which doesn't make any sense, the entire airport doesn't shut down when an airplane takes off.
Yeah, but they also don't do a live webcast from the middle of the food court, which is basically what we're doing. It just so happens that one of the really great places centralized that's in front of Mission Control by that engine has great shots and good infrastructure.
Yeah, because our cafeteria is the coolest place to eat at.
It is.
I've never eaten at your cafeteria.
Because
You
you can't.
should.
Just happens to be in the middle of the mezzanine eating area, and as such, people are in fact eating. And yeah, there's a launch going on, but they still have to work, and so. Yeah, they're eating, and it's annoying. Now, I did spend...
Because not everyone who works there is salary. Some people, like, that's people's lunchtime, man.
Right.
Like, I don't know what to tell you.
So I did spend a great deal of time the day prior with people on microphone, and we even asked Carrie Ann, we're like, hey, turn on the blenders, make all of the noises, get as loud as you can. We need, like, chairs going back and forth. We need every noise. And I EQ'd the bejeebers out of those microphones. To try to we have very aggressive high and low pass filters on those microphones now, which unfortunately you can actually hear a little bit in the tonality of the sound that was coming out. But I think it did help reduce some of those clinky noises. Did not eliminate, because those frequencies are in talking voice frequency, and if I eliminate it, then you won't hear them at all. But hopefully it was better.
One day I'm just like I'm silently hoping during the webcast that one day you just hear like a huge number of plates just like shatter on the floor, a massive belch.
I will say
just
that
comes
there
out of
was
nowhere.
an almost plate on the floor directly behind one of the cameras on the mezzanine, and I about had a heart attack myself.
Can't you use one of those like drum surrounds where they have the like plexiglass things with the
in the middle of my
inside
calf? Are you kidding?
Just for the camera setup.
No.
It's big. It's almost as big as this is.
Yeah, it's about as big.
It takes up like 4 freaking tables. It's terrible. The other thing is that somebody said something that people should go to plastic. While we're using water to wash all the plates and silverware, it's with the amount of people that we're serving and the amount of food that's going in and out of there, plasticware just is not going to be a thing. There's a lot of taterware that goes on. Our department is very concerned, of course, about the environment and not polluting as much as possible. So everything's biodegradable whenever it can be. And the reusable plates and silverware are saving a lot of those things going out the door and in the garbage, even if they are biodegradable. So there's that. Mike, what were you saying?
Something that I wanted to say about this is I think that the biggest complaint, because there's always been a lot of noise on all of the webcasts, the SpaceX webcasts, but I think that the biggest complaint now, at least for me anyway, when I'm watching it, is if one of the hosts isn't speaking, isn't giving me some sort of information. Is there a way to just mute all of their mics so that we just hear nothing, or even just get like on some of the older webcasts, if the hosts weren't speaking, it would all mute out and we would get sound from like
we stopped doing that on purpose because it becomes very jarring. Because they're only not speaking for like 10 seconds at a time. So you have this really huge amount of ambient noise, then it goes to 0, then it comes back up to a huge amount of ambient noise, and you get this weird like spike, not spike in the sound. And so we just stopped doing it because it's not as smooth. It's actually harder to concentrate on it at that point.
Maybe so just drop it 6 decibels or something.
Well, I mean, we do. No, we do. We drop it down when they're not talking. I think it's only 3 dB, but that's 3 dB is a lot.
Yeah, 3 dB is double.
It also depends on the time of day. Like this one was like 7 a.m. Pacific time, right? So yeah, there's going to be a lot more dinner or lunch or breakfast food noise at that time. If you're like 3 o'clock in the morning, no food's being served You're just simply not going to hear it. It just depends. And if there's more murmur of the crowd, if it's a bigger launch and there's more people there, you're not going to hear it as much. There's going to be, instead of a drum barricade, there's just going to be a human barricade to the noise itself. But you'll hear more people just kind of standing around talking and that sort of thing. It just depends. It just depends. And
Oh, Andrew, those are really good, very directional microphones.
Really good.
I don't, and actually, I have brought in some really high-end audio guys looking at this stuff, EQing things out, getting good compression, and once we give them the restrictions, they're like, do this, this, or this, and we're like, well, we can't do, like, it can't be a head-worn mic, so no Countryman's. They don't want to see it like that. Shotguns won't work because you'd have to be too far out for the lighting grid, so you're going to just get too much ambient. Like, when we throw the restrictions out there, they're all like, yeah, you can just the only thing you can do is notch the high and lows off, and I mean, thus far that, or move, and that's not off the table.
I get that plates clinking is distracting for sure. Silverware clinking on plates is distracting for sure. Those absolutely wonderful chairs that we have that make the most abhorrent noises in the face of the planet.
Loud. They're so loud.
But they're beautiful.
Instead of drywall on the roof and the ceiling and all that, could you put like
those are I-beam ceilings? I don't know what you're talking about,
man.
man.
Towels.
No. There's a drop ceiling on
I can't
under
change
the cafeteria.
the aesthetics of anything. No.
Yeah, that's not gonna.
No, there's no drop ceiling.
No.
It's too bad that there's not enough
Under
room
the
to do it
mezzanine?
inside
No.
the control room.
No, there are the I-beams themselves are sheetrock, and the rest of it is
that's
just,
what I mean on
just
the
the
sheetrock.
I-beams. No, because
No, they're not even
those are
sheetrock.
speakers.
They're just like
No, the I-beams are sheetrocked. I know the I-beams are sheetrocked because every 5 feet there's a speaker in the I-beam.
Oh, those I was thinking the other ways.
They only go one way, and then you've got the decking, and then that just has the spray.
Okay,
the,
I guess those are the
spray
things
on
I
it.
was thinking
I
of.
can't cover the sheetrock because there's speakers in them.
Sequence at T-minus 3 seconds.
Are you watching it again?
We're at T-minus 2.
It's too bad there's not enough room to do it inside the control room. I know that would be distracting for those folks
It would be
working in
really
there, but-
distracting.
Oh, in
for
the mission
them.
control room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other side of the glass?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would. I don't know how to do that because I can't interrupt the mission.
Right.
I've looked at other locations. I haven't found anything I love yet. Right? There's just an excitement and kind of an awesomeness to being like right there in the thick of it, where you can hear the crowd. Yeah, you're hearing the plates, but you're also hearing the cheering. I can move it somewhere away from all of that, but then it's away from all of that, right? So you don't get even the cheering, and there's something magical about that cheering that I just don't want to get rid of.
I mean,
So-
at that point, you might as well just be in Tennessee.
You're not
Like, who
cheering
cares?
as much as you used to as well.
Well, I mean, we're launching every 2 weeks.
Becoming more routine.
It's becoming more routine. But, they're still cheering. They're still good.
Slackers.
Well, a mission control noise is not a lot. It's pretty quiet in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
everybody's concentrating.
Right.
They're just like,
Yeah.
Well, and they have mics. I mean, they.
That was actually one of my requests, is that maybe we can...
Pressure's good.
Yeah, actually, that goes into where I have to stop talking. But this has been discussed, and it's not that it can't be solved. It certainly can be solved. It's just, what are we willing to give up? Yeah, it's just a bigger conversation, and unfortunately, it's not as simple as it sounds. It's not like, just do X, Y, or Z. There are a lot more variables in play here. And that's usually the case, right? Everyone's like, I have this great idea. It's like, well, yeah, but you don't have all the data. It's not that your idea is bad. It's just you don't have all the data. So
Yeah,
you
I
don't
love this
know what the
idea
restrictions
of putting
are.
the tennis balls on the bottoms of the legs.
Didn't we try that? Like, didn't we? Like,
We did
they
cork.
tried. They did cork and felt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just ripped right off, didn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
But the tennis balls are
Tennis balls, yeah.
hilarious. Could you imagine walking around just seeing like whole shite tons of
Tennis balls.
yeah. Oh, that's cute.
What is that?
this is the menu for the cafes at JPL. See,
Let's
but
just
everybody
put the
keeps-
hosts inside your guys' new spacesuits. Just have the internal mics.
Right?
Yeah, that'll do it.
Except you would hear them breathing.
Falcons on a very good trajectory. That's a
Everything's
That sounds awesome.
Oh, man. Bye, Dwight.
Yep.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, Maston mode. Yeah, held desk.
Anyways,
NASA.
I think I'm.
Yeah, have a good one, Mike. If you need to take off.
Yeah, I think I'm winding down here.
All right.
Yeah, I think we are too.
See you, Mike.
Helpdesk and NASA PAO had people positioned in mission control. If you want SpaceX to have that feeling, we're 10 seconds away from launch. This is one of the most exciting things humanity's ever done, and we have found a way to make it sound the most boring.
3, 2, 1.
We have to speak quietly
Ignition.
because we're next to
Lift
people.
off. Falcon has cleared the tower.
Hoisting harmony to the heavens and beyond. This is NPR Launch Report.
The engines are now throttling down as the rocket goes into the bucket.
I would be amazing at that,
next
by the way. I would be so good.
What? All right,
Just
ready to go.
start, start a Twitter
Stage
Twitter account
separate.
called Board Reporter.
Board
launch
PAO.
Board Launch Report.
Oh my gosh, I have an idea. I think I'm going to steal that from you, Dada.
SpaceX landed.
I'm not gonna get into details, but the technical stream is not coming back. Star.
I would be.
Ready to go. Try it. From 10 seconds. Counting down from 10.
No, this mic isn't right.
Oh, you need the. All right.
Go for it. They got the
Go.
mic over
You
there.
got it. I know exactly what you mean.
Do it.
Do it.
No.
Do it.
Come on in.
Come on. Come on. Let's go.
Nope, it's way worse when you say it like that.
Come on.
No, but I would.
You would.
I'm
You
a
should show
great
everyone.
golf announcer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you should do it.
And we're coming up on Miko and stage separation. The second stage engine
Loopy,
has
you cannot have
started.
meters per second. I can't go into details, but that will not be coming back either.
Can we have elephants per second?
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Football fields per second. Cubic football fields per second.
Wait, African or Asian?
Oh, damn it.
Neuropilot, there actually isn't as much as you'd think there is. There just isn't that much there. You're getting most of it, believe it or not.
Yeah, when things are going fine, there's very little. I mean, there's plenty of video of inside mission control for shuttle launches with the loop. And when
everyone expects the countdown loops to be like constant chatter,
Nope.
and they're just not. They're almost
quiet.
total silence. And so you're getting almost all of it.
Yeah.
Not all of it, to be fair, right? There are certain things that are stepped on. I get that, but you're getting a majority of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can listen to.
I do love the Rumble in the Jungle, Issa.
You can listen to something though, like the STS-93 launch.
Oh my
and
God.
That launch and the control loop on that, and they are fighting all the way to orbit.
Yeah, so STS-90, but that is not on their countdown net. If you listen to their countdown net, also mostly silent, right? Even though they're fighting that whole shuttle, that shuttle is fighting them to orbit. They're like, I don't wanna, meh. And Prop is just sitting there like, okay, I've got 3 critical things on my screen, all of which could be abort scenarios. Which one do you want to hear first? Right?
And that's literally like right off the pad.
Yeah, it's like 10 seconds off the pad. You hear the was it Columbia?
Yep.
Yeah, Columbia called down, we've got a pH fuel cell misbalance or imbalance or whatever it was. And then they're like, cool, thanks for that. And then Prop just starts going, but those are all internal loops, right? You wouldn't have heard that on there. And then PAO's like, looking pretty good. Flight's nominal this far.
It was a female PAO that time,
No, it was not. No. Female commander on the orbiter.
Yeah, Eileen Collins. Yeah. So, who is one of my favorite astronauts. So.
Yeah, the go, no-go poll also not coming back, at least not when the poll is so far in the past, right? That's another thing where people are like, oh, you should do the poll. The poll happens at like an absurd time before liftoff at this point. So, and the webcast isn't starting at that point, especially since you're sitting there almost totally idle. We can't fill that time, and we're just not going to. So, neat. I don't disagree. The go no go poll is cool, but not when it's that early in the countdown.
Just pre-record it and have that start your webcast.
Yeah. Well, nah.
I will say, though, that the shirt that Michael was wearing this last webcast did hearken to the steel blue, steely-eyed missile man.
You really liked that shirt on him, didn't you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told him. He blushed. It was great. All right. I think that's all we got.
Did we stall? I think we're stalled. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Again, disappointed I'm the only one wearing SpaceX stuff.
I'm wearing Tomorrowland stuff. He's got buses and Californias. And
I already knew we were going to be talking about SpaceX.
Yeah.
It's not like that was like, that's our main topic today. Your excuse is lame, by the way.
Kitty stole all mine.
Just saying.
You know, it's still in the drawer, and now that it's a double X, I can't wear them because I like lost weight and stuff.
Neither can I.
So as we're going out, Loopy says Atlas does its poll at T-4 minute hold. Yeah, they do a poll. I believe it was at T-4 minutes. And then ULA stole my idea for the go no goal thing that I actually got to use a couple times on air, and then they took it and made it worse. And it makes me sad because mine is better. But yeah, and they poll like everyone, so they have just like this page of things that it's like turning green. It is kind of cool. I mean, it's a good idea. I know because I had it first. And yeah, that's my little angry moment.
All right.
Yeah.
This is angry boring reporter.
Oh yeah, wasn't there a angry reporter on Twitter?
Local angry reporter.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well,
so
I think
good.
we've gone down, but that's a story for someone. Remind us to tell you the story of angry local reporter and how that all came
so
about.
Good.
That's for a different show, though. All right. See you, everyone. Bye.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.